Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the greatest entitled parent stories we read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled parents you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that if this video gets 1,000 likes, she won't try to speak to anyone's manager for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And become an official member of the Re-Army today, and I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming video. r/Entitled Parents. Karen threatens to sue the school because her kid got low grades. So I work in a small retail store and have enough entitled stories to fill a book, but this story is from my last year of senior school. Year 11 in the UK, 16 years old. As per, we've got Emma, my friend, we've got entitled kid, and we've got entitled mom. Some context. In year 11, we tend to do our final exams in June and don't get our results back until the August, which makes for a very nerve-wracking summer. In our school, we had 4 classes for each core subject, math, English, and science, with set 1 being the top set for the highest achieving students and set 4 being the lowest set. I had a pretty tight-knit group of friends, but one of our friends, let's just call her Emma for this story, also hung out with another group sometimes. Emma was a smart girl, but struggled with self-confidence and often panicked in exams, which landed her in set 3 for most subjects. This is where entitled kid comes into it. She hung out with Emma's other group of friends, but it was an unstable group with lots of arguments and making up on a daily basis. We were 16 at the time, so this was pretty immature. Entitled kid was smart and in set 1 for everything, but didn't let anyone forget about it and would cry to the teacher if she had forgotten homework or got a bad mark, less than an A. But the worst thing about entitled kid was her nightmare entitled mom. If anyone disagreed with entitled kid or contradicted her, she would tell entitled mom that she was being bullied. Entitled mom was also very involved in the school, so none of the teachers ever wanted to get involved if entitled kid was in the wrong. There are so many stories I could tell, but here's the one that I remember the most. It was the end of August, results day. We'd been dreading getting our exams back all summer, and it was finally the time to open those brown envelopes. Most people were there with their parents, either smiling or crying over their grades. I was pretty happy with how I had done, but of course, entitled kid and entitled mom wouldn't stop bragging over entitled kid's grades. In truth, entitled kid did really well, but it was insensitive to the people who didn't do so well. Here's where Emma comes back into the story. She opened her envelope and smiled the biggest smile I'd ever seen. Emma, I got an A in English. Considering she was in set 3, who usually struggled to rack up a C, we were so happy for her, and her parents were ecstatic. Entitled kid, however, just snatched her paper and looked over it. Entitled kid, this is wrong. Emma, no, this is my paper. We were all staring at entitled kid in disgust, but entitled mom just strolled over and looked over Emma's paper. She took the paper and walked over to the English teacher. Entitled mom, yeah, excuse me, Emma has the wrong paper. These aren't her grades. Teacher, the exam board takes a lot of care making these. It couldn't have been a mistake. Entitled mom, are you saying that she got an A in English? Teacher, yes, that's right. Is there a problem? Entitled kid only got an A. That's not possible. She's in set 1, and she's the best at English this year. The teacher didn't know what to say, and Emma looked close to tears. Entitled mom, take her grade away. Entitled kid deserves that A more than Emma. Teacher, everyone got back what they put into the work. You can't change the mark. You have to. If you don't, then I'll sue the school for meddling with exam scores. By then, everyone was watching as the teacher stepped closer to entitled mom. Teacher, first of all, if entitled kid didn't do as well as she wanted, she can retake English in college next year. But she can't. Second, stick to your own kid's grades. You have no business looking at Emma's grades and deciding what she did or didn't work for. And good luck suing the school. We don't mark the exams. You'll have to take it up with the exam board. The entitled mom looked more shocked than a deer caught in headlights. Teacher, you've got your grades. Leave now. Realizing that everyone was watching her, entitled mom grabbed entitled kid's hand and dragged her back to the car. Fortunately, entitled kid left to go to a different college than the rest of us, but we still laugh about it from time to time. What was your favorite class when you were in school? Please let us know. Lunch was always my favorite subject. How I got even with a crappy former coworker that wanted to spread rumors. Okay, so I was recommended to post this story to this sub. I'm going to be honest, there are no saints in this story. There's no good guy or bad guy. I felt I was wronged and I got revenge. That said, let me give y'all some backstory and get to the good stuff we're all here for. I worked as a security guard for a few years at a factory. My last year, I had made site supervisor and ran the guard booth. We were contractors. Our contract was simple. We made sure everyone who comes in is logged, watch the cameras, call bigwigs to pick up their visitors. Every now and then we did a walkthrough or some paperwork. Simple, and it leaves you with a lot of relative downtime depending on your shift. During my tenure, I made a few friends, a few enemies, and got along with most of the people working there. It's surprisingly easy to investigate incidents when people like talking with you. One of the enemies I made was a supervisor. Let's call him Ted. Ted had worked his way up from a line worker and felt that since he had made his way from nothing, he deserved his ego. He had squared himself firmly against anyone he couldn't control, and I never gave him his due. We all know his type. Now, Ted treated his line workers pretty poorly, and more than a few came to me to report his misconduct. One of our duties was to log any of these complaints as an incident report, submit a copy to the factory admin, submit a copy to our company, and then file the original. Ted had his own folder in that drawer. Ted did not like this. Ted did not like me. At the start of lockdown, we lost most of our staff in the booth. We were down to 3 guards trying to cover a 24/7 schedule. We did a lot of 12-hour shifts starting from March, going all the way to October when I left. My company struggled to fill the missing spots, hiring 2 guards during that period. Neither lasted more than 2 weeks. October came, I was burnt. Then both my remaining guards quit. I don't blame them in the least. I immediately turned in my 2 weeks and refused to work more than 12 hours a day. After I turned in my notice, my company scrambled to replace me and the missing guards. They got my replacement at the start of my last week, and she started on a Sunday. I trained her for 1 day, and she never came back. I discovered on my last day she had claimed that I intimidated her and made her feel uncomfortable. She told my boss she didn't feel safe around me. Now, I was livid at this. I have never mixed business and pleasure. I'm a big guy. I work out. I have never had those intentions at work. It was a major joke anywhere I've worked because my tagline has always been, I don't crap where I eat. I was burned out. I had an amazing woman I am now dating who was coming out to see me in 2 weeks. I had spent hours training this woman. I had her scheduled during my shift for the entire week so I could walk her through everything to do with the job. I had squared off with the factory admin to keep it that way. I was doing everything I could to help her because she was coming into a major mess. Admin was looking for a different contractor. Supervisors were trying to access our files. We had tons of sensitive information that would have let anybody move up the ladder quick, or at least remove a lot of competition. It was chaos. At this point, I hadn't had a day off or a good night's sleep in 3 months, and the boss I had only ever talked to over the phone had arrived in person to tell me this crap. I had almost been terminated over this on my last week. If I didn't have the work ethic my father taught me, I would have walked out then and there. I finished my day and walked away, never intending to think of that job again. Now, the story should end here, but it didn't, and this is the juicy part y'all are hankering for. See, after I left, a few friends kept me up to date on the going-ons. My replacement came back for a day and then quit, citing the long hours would keep her away from her kid. I was salty, but it's not my problem. Until a few days ago. See, Ted had found out about her allegations and began spreading rumors I had been terminated for harassment. He then told people that I was a serial harasser and had caused a former employee to quit as well. She had left as I had gotten the site supervisor job over her. I had seniority and she had a dirty disciplinary record. She had a few incidents that had nearly gotten her fired. I didn't like this, especially given that 2/3 of the incident reports I had on Ted were for harassment. What Ted didn't know is that I don't like being messed with. While I'm quiet and unassumingly, I had plenty of time to build my MAD folders. Little personal history. When I was a computer tech, I had been royally done over and nearly fired by my then boss. He gave me directives that were a violation of company policy, bad enough that when they came to light, I was given an immediate final written warning. Since I had no proof he told me to do what I did, I shouldered full blame. Since that day, I've created mutually assured destruction folders, MAD folders, on anyone that I felt would try to do me over. Ted was one such person. All the originals of my folders are kept hidden in online storage and most are never touched. But Ted upset me and was threatening my future job prospects. Reputation is everything, so I opened his folder. I had access to the camera system at the factory. Folks, small-town factories are disgusting. People do crap you wouldn't believe. One really popular thing is to hook up in the parking lot. Ted had built a little harem for himself by giving better line positions to employees that hooked up with him, and I had pictures and video. I made a nice little folder with some choice clips and stills. Then I sent them to his wife and his oldest daughter. Dude is 20-ish years married with 4 daughters, 2 in college, one graduating in a year or 2. No clue what happened there, but I doubt it's going well for him. And that wasn't the end. I wasn't satisfied. This never would have been a thing if that replacement hadn't used me as an excuse to duck and run. I told y'all, there's no saints here. During her one day of training, my replacement had asked me about cell phones with good cameras and a bunch of weird policy questions. A few careful questions, and lo and behold, she has an OnlyFans. I warned her that this was a huge violation of our contract with our company, and any type of this work is forbidden, as the company has clients in Vegas and some European countries where that is legal and doesn't want any workers moonlighting. The company is incredibly strict on that. Strict to the point I could have terminated her on the spot. They are impartial. Man or woman, it is not tolerated. Thinking on this and being very irate, I track it down, and she was nice enough to have her links on her premium Snap. I bundle this and send it to 3 groups: my previous employer, the IRS, and her ex. She had been in a protracted custody battle with him, and our state is a little conservative. Judges here do not look favorably on these workers. Most are prejudiced against them, and I just gave her ex evidence of this work and possibly tax fraud. If his lawyer can't get at least split custody, no child support, that's on the ex for being a piece of crap. So that's my story. Let me know if y'all feel this is pro-revenge or not, because honestly, I'm not sure if it went far enough. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this revenge? Please let us know. Probably like a 12 to be honest, dang. Need me to adhere to the dress code right now? Enjoy the fallout. I was reminded of this story from my work by one of my coworkers. It's been maybe 5 to 7 years since this happened. Where I work, there's a semi-strict dress code that needs to be adhered to so we look presentable when going to customers' houses. The minor details are more or less negotiable depending on who's our manager that day. We have a normal manager we see almost daily, but if he's off or it's a weekend, somebody else subs in. The day this happened was a Saturday and our regular manager was off, so the duty manager for the day happened to be Mr. Jerk, whom no one liked, and he made it his life goal to make all the techs miserable. When we walked in the door, we had to pass through the manager's office to get to our meeting area. My coworker, Tim, name changed, walked in the door that was to the manager's office with everything looking right on his uniform but his shirt untucked. The following conversation took place. Mr. Jerk: "Your shirt should be tucked in." Tim: "Absolutely, and I will do that when I set my gear down and go to the bathroom." Mr. Jerk: "No, you need to show up for work ready to work, not show up and get ready on my time." Tim: "Okay, let me set my stuff down and I'll go right to the bathroom and tuck it in for you." "No, you're going to tuck it in right now before you walk another step into my building." Tim: "Right now?" Mr. Jerk: "Right now." So my coworker did as instructed, unbuttoned his pants and pulled them all the way down to his ankles and proceeded to smooth out his shirt, and then reached all the way down and pulled his pants all the way back up and rebuttoned them. From there, he immediately walked outside and called the HR hotline and told them his manager on duty just forced him to do all this and wouldn't allow him to go to the bathroom to tuck his shirt in. That he felt weird and uncomfortable to be around Mr. Jerk and didn't know if he had any ulterior motives. None of us are privy to what exactly happened from that phone call on, but we do know that he got laterally moved from being a tech manager to the safety team where he was no longer in charge of any subordinates. I'll make an edit to iron out some details or important things I forgot. Our job is very much union-based, and as such, the union book is the law of the land, so language and actions have to be very specific as to not draw ire from the union nor the business. Tim was raised in a union household by someone who was very involved in their union, so he has a very keen knowledge on how to manipulate things well within the trappings of the union handbook. He did this whole thing not next to the boss's desk, but within line of sight of the door coming in, and the door to the meeting room, so there were visual witnesses from the meeting room and people who trickled into work behind him who literally walked through the entire ordeal. So there were plenty of witnesses to corroborate. Am I the jerk for directly calling out a woman's snobbish behavior, causing several people to leave our knitting group? So one thing I can't stand is snobby people who act like the only way to do things is their way. It's a huge thing in knitting groups. People act high and mighty because of how they learned, the yarn they use, knitting being better than crocheting, etc., etc. I hated the energy in a lot of existing groups, so I started my own. We switched to virtual stuff since lockdown started, and I have rules that you have to agree to follow before you can join. One of the rules is to be kind to others and absolutely no snob behavior. Everything has been going great, except this pre-existing group of friends joined, and they really pushed the boundaries of the aforementioned rule. They started dipping their toe with comments about acrylic yarn and how they would never use it, with dramatic, icky faces. Well, they did this again when a new girl joined the group. She was using an acrylic yarn in her project. One of the women asked her what she was using, and then the little clique acted like they weren't directly remarking while obviously doing it. This is kind of hard to explain, but if you've ever had to deal with mean girls, you know what I'm talking about. It was like, I just don't understand how people are still using acrylic yarn these days. I mean, there are so many other options. Unless you're still shopping at big box stores instead of indies. In the middle of the rant, I was just like, hey guys, let's remember that we're not here to judge anyone for what they're using or how they're using it, okay? Well, this upset the group because they started arguing with me about how nobody was judging anyone. And, oh, so I can't even have an opinion now? And, why are you trying to censor us? We're having a conversation. If someone doesn't like it, they can leave. I muted everyone and said something like, the rules for this group are very clear and you have to acknowledge them before you join the call. If there's an issue, we can talk about it after. The women all ended up leaving the group and I got a bunch of nasty emails and tags on a few social media posts calling me out for being pro-censorship and a tyrant and saying how I shouldn't be in charge of anything because of how obviously biased I am. I don't think I'm in the wrong for this. My rules exist to make things welcoming for others. Sitting around putting down other people does not feel like it's very welcoming, especially for snobby crap like they were doing. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or are the Karens in her group? Please let us know. Tell the Karens to start their own group. Then they can wonder why no one wants to join them. You're right, I don't work here. But you're wrong, because I do work here. So I work for a company that sells backup power sources for both residential and commercial customers. My job is to go into big box stores and set up displays and represent my company while trying to get potential leads. I'm not an employee of any of these stores, but I technically work there when my show is there. Now that you know what I do, here's the story. Characters. We've got me. We've got employee. We've got manager, and of course, Karen. A few months back, about 3 months into the lockdown, I came to the store I was working at that particular week. Now normally I go in through the back, but the back door was closed and locked. So I went around front as I had just remembered they started the senior/disabled only shop hour. There's a crowd of younger people sitting outside waiting to be let in. Now I am 30 years old. I'm wearing my business suit and store vendor name tag, so employee let me go straight in with no questions asked. I was also holding part of my display, so clearly going into work. I see a lady, and she, like most of these outside, looked a little annoyed. Suddenly I hear someone yell, "Hey, how come they get to go in and we don't?" I turn, and it was the lady, Karen. I'm thinking she just didn't see my name tag, so I turn around to face her so she can see it, and say, "I work here." "No you don't. You don't have a store badge," Karen yells. I pull my lanyard up to show her my name tag and say, "You're right, it's a vendor badge for this store." Employee also backs me up by telling her I do work at that store. Karen then proclaims that I have no right to be there since I don't look disabled and am clearly not over 65. I just at that point start to walk away and she attempts to follow me in. The employee steps in her way and tells Karen to go back outside. She pushes him. I saw this out of the corner of my eye, so to try and de-escalate the situation, I stop and say, "Ma'am, I have 2 things that allow me to be here during the shop early hour. One is my vendor badge, the other is my disability card." I show her my card my county issued to me. Now, wait for it. She yells, "I want to see the manager." Employee radio calls for manager and politely asks her to wait for manager outside, to which her response is, "No, I want to see the manager now." They aren't supposed to be here. By this time, Karen is making enough ruckus to get other waiting customers to defend us. She still waits inside. Manager comes over and asks what the problem is. She tells him how I am not supposed to be here, that I don't work for his store, and I'm faking my disability, which he is aware of in case of emergencies at work. He explains to Karen that she is right and wrong. I don't work for his store, but I do work at his store, and I have every right to be there during the senior and disability only hour. He also asks her to get out of the store until the full open. She refuses again and demands he have me removed. At this point, he now tells her that she can either leave willingly or have her removed by police. He also tells me to go ahead and head to my station since I now have 10 minutes to set up a display that normally takes me 30 minutes to set up. I do just that. About an hour later, I realize I forgot a cable in my car and need to go get it. I go out and see a police officer leaning over the passenger window of his cruiser. He's telling her that she can either leave quietly now or he can take her to jail. She sees me and is livid. Priceless. The officer took her to jail. She was charged with criminal trespass and disturbing the peace. Am I the jerk for not giving a bully's mom a promotion? I am a 27-year-old male that works for a mid-sized company in my hometown. After college, I moved back home to help my mom get back on her feet after my dad passed, and I was hired on with my current company and rose up fairly quickly through the ranks. Last year, my younger sister was having some issues at school with some girls bullying her, and my mom was going through the school trying to get it to stop. One day, things got out of hand, and one of the girls tossed my sister's clothes into the shower room during gym and turned all of them on. I left work to take my sister some clothes because my mom was at a medical appointment and I saw a coworker at the school. When my sister got home, she told me that the bully always has something mean to say or do. It turns out that the coworker had also left to pick up her daughter because she was the one who tossed the clothes in the shower room. She saw me leaving with my sister and approached me the next day at work to apologize. I sent human resources and my boss an email regarding the incident and didn't think anything else from it. We had a position in management open up 3 weeks ago, and she, along with 2 others, were up for the job. I interviewed 2 out of 3 as HR didn't think it would be wise for me to interview her, and I agreed. At the end of the week, my boss and I got together to see where we stood on the decision, and he asked why I couldn't sit in on her interview. I reminded him of the last incident, and that was that. We ended up going with one of the other employees, and my boss remarked to me that her failure in her home certainly didn't help. I guess I should feel bad about that, but honestly, I don't. The woman approached me after work while I was going to my car and asked if her daughter's past action was an issue and the deciding factor, and I told her that she should speak to our manager and HR if she felt it was a biased interview, but gave her a little grin after. Am I the jerk? Edit. I didn't want this to go on for so long, so I won't be replying anymore. Like some of you said, the adults here agree with me other than my grin. I can accept that. I think the best action here would be to have her transferred to another position under someone else. The hours are similar, so that way it stays fair. Thanks for your time and feedback. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Oh, I can't wait to see what our audience thinks of this one. You want all the yellow flowers we have? No problem. It's that time of year for flower shops, and I recently saw a guest who hasn't been to the shop since the events of this story from a couple of years ago. I was freshly cross-trained onto the sales floor of my flower shop and had just started answering the phones by the registers. Incoming phone calls from guests are set up to go to the phone center's lines first, but forward to the floor if no one answers. I was the lucky one to answer a particular grumpy regular we'll call May. May already had issues with me because I was new, and I had issues with her because I don't let people walk all over me, customer or not. She also was generally a problematic customer. I was just her current target for being new. The phone call goes something like this. Me. Local flower shop. This is Potato speaking. How may I help you? May. Potato? No, I need someone else. Me. I'm sorry, no one else is available. A lie, but no one was near a phone. How can I help you, May? May. I need yellow flowers. What kind of flowers? Just yellow flowers. Are you so slow you don't know what yellow flowers are? Me. Well, we have a large selection of You know what? Just give me all of them. All of them? Are you deaf? Yes, all of them. And charge it to my card on file so I can just grab them and go. At this point, I wave over the sales manager and switch the call to speaker so he can hear it. Me. Okay, so just clarifying, May, that you want all of the yellow flowers we have in stock. And yes, and charge it to my card. I've wasted enough time talking to you about it. I don't want to wait for my receipt at the counter. I'll be there in 2 hours. I raise an eyebrow at the sales manager. He gives me a bewildered thumbs up and head nod, and I tell her we'll have it ready. Sales manager and I then proceed to pull roses, spray roses, snapdragons, literally hundreds of bunches of flowers. We are the biggest florist in the state, and we get the mums in boxes of 24 and never less than 15 boxes a week. So that honestly took up the majority of it. The entire time, sales manager is saying how May will never actually take all of this, but he doesn't like people sassing off to his coworkers, so he was more than willing to play along. He did have the foresight to not charge her card, as when we finished ringing everything up, it came to a whopping $1,000 plus order. Between the two of us and some helping hands here and there, some of the other sales clerks learned what happened. It took a good portion of those 2 hours to get everything together, and sales manager had to leave before we were finished to handle a different matter. May comes in, already glaring at me, and asks where her order is. I smile at her and gesture the 20 or so buckets of yellow flowers surrounding the pickup area. It honestly looked like a display, we had so many buckets. While she's doing her best imitation of a suffocating fish, I tell her as nicely as possible, I just wanted to check that you wanted this order charged to one card since $1,000 is a lot of money. You could hear her brain short-circuit before she went beet red and said, "This isn't what I meant. Where is sales manager?" I call him over on the radio, and sure enough, as soon as he comes over, he's asking May if we pulled enough yellow flowers and that we had more coming in early tomorrow morning if she wanted them. She starts stuttering about how this isn't what she ordered and how incompetent Potato is, etc. Until sales manager says, "Potato confirmed with you that you wanted all of the yellow flowers in stock, and these are all of the yellow flowers in stock. If you wanted specific flowers or quantities, you would have had to specify those with our sales clerk when placing your order." At this point, she grabs an armful of daisies and some roses and stomps off to the registers. The store got a rather nasty email with me mentioned by name about my incompetency and rude behavior, but sales manager corroborated my side of the story. Camera showed I at least appeared nothing but friendly the whole interaction, and the number of other incidents regarding this particular guest basically ended with an "if you can't be nice to our workers, don't shop here" responding email. We were scolded for wasting 2 hours when we knew she wouldn't take all of it, and there were other things to do. But we did exactly what the customer said, so not much else happened repercussion-wise. A goddess among guests. I checked in a guest. Let's call her Angel since she is one. She was sweet right off the boat. She tells me about her life and how she is a foster mother and how she has adopted most of her kids. I gush over her and her inspiring life choices. Then she thanks me and leaves to get settled in. While this is transpiring, another guest I had checked in earlier comes up to the desk looking upset. I know exactly why. When she was checking in, she had lied about how many people were in her room, and my manager on duty caught them. They were told about our capacity limit per room and how they would have to purchase another room if they wanted to stay. 2 adults, 6 kids, but our cap is 5 people per regular room and 6 for suites. I released the hold on her card and canceled her reservation. I apologized and reiterated that I had to follow policy. She left, looking defeated. 10 minutes later, Angel walks up to the front desk. Me. "Hey, welcome back. What can I do for you?" Angel. "Do you have any adjoining rooms available?" Me. "I'd have to check, but we should." "Great. If you do, I'd like to buy a room for the lady that just left with all those kids." Me. "That is the sweetest thing. You don't have to do that, but you are welcome to if you'd like." She leaves and goes outside to tell the mother of the 6 kids she can pay for the room, while I am standing dumbstruck at the desk. They come back in and ask for the price of the rooms. I let Angel know that she will be responsible for any extra charges and fees accrued if the room is trashed, and that I can continue with the reservation process if she is comfortable and understands this. She is, and we continue. The mother of 6, I could tell, felt so grateful. She said she wanted to celebrate her son's birthday, but how it's hard to find places that accept that many people. It made my night, her night, and her kids' night. They only wanted to swim and enjoy a 5-year-old's birthday. It may not seem like much, but the kindness of a stranger after a dumpster fire year really made me feel like there is hope for all of us yet. Update. The family left and the room was not trashed. I spoke with my GM about it, and she will speak to the manager on duty about it. Thank you to everyone who has shown this post love. I'm glad I was able to brighten some days with this story. Karen niece doesn't appreciate my gift. I teach her a valuable lesson. For the past few years, every time I buy my niece anything, she complains about it. She has expensive taste, and while I'm not broke, I certainly do not have the money to buy what she asks for. I've told her this in the past, along with her mother. Both seem to understand, but my niece will still get a "that's all" attitude about her. One year, I got her a gift card to her favorite clothing store. It wasn't enough to buy a full outfit from there, but it would get her a pair of jeans or a sweater or something. She said, "You expect me to be able to use this to buy something?" Another, I flat out gave her cash to put towards one of the items on our list, and I was told that it wasn't enough. So what was the point? She's 16 now. For her birthday in May, I sent her a gift card to a different store. When she called me to thank me, she said, "Thank you, even though this isn't enough to buy anything." I was pretty upset and told my sister I wasn't buying her daughter anything else. She said that wasn't fair because our brother's kids always get something to open on Christmas. Yeah, because his kids aren't ungrateful about the gifts. They understand I'm not the aunt that can spoil them, but they appreciate their small gifts. I still don't want to cause drama on Christmas. Every year, I always get a kid from one of those organizations to buy a gift for. This year, I selected two, one of them wanting something within the budget I set for my nieces and nephews. I bought the present in my niece's name and made a nice handmade card detailing that a gift to a less fortunate kid had been made in her name. We couldn't be together this year for Christmas because of lockdown, but we did a Zoom celebration with everyone. My niece opened her gift and freaked out. She said it wasn't fair, everyone else got a gift. I said, I figured this was something that was useful. She got even more upset, broke what my parents got her, and stormed out of the room. My family has called me a jerk for this. They said it would have been better to not get her anything at all. Am I a jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or is their niece? Please let us know. Maybe you can get her a lump of coal next year. If you don't like the job, you can just quit. Okay, a bit of context here. I'm originally from Syria, and I spent around 7 to 8 months in Sudan, Africa. And that country, being a third world country and super poor, didn't have any good jobs. But at the same time, prices were so cheap, you can live with only around $100 a month. Rent, bills, food, and water. But gasoline was expensive to the point you need around $50 to $100 just for commuting to work. So it comes to around $200 per month if you're going to work by any kind of transportation. As for jobs, the best you can do without prior experience is either work in a restaurant or a factory for at most $100, which meant you had to be close to the job or get them to cover transportation. So around 5 months ago, I got in contact with a restaurant owner and talked with him about a job offer I saw. The job we talked about was being a warehouse manager for the restaurant. My shift starts at 8 a.m. and ends at 6 p.m., 7 days a week with only 1 vacation day per month, and I get 1 sandwich per day as lunch and 1 meal per week to take home. I asked about the salary, and he said we will discuss it later. I asked how I will organize the warehouse, and he said he will provide me with a laptop to work on later. I agreed to work a trial period of a week, and then we will discuss the salary and see if it works out. First day on the job, he hands me the keys of the warehouse, and when I open it, I find a glorious mess. I asked my coworkers about it, and they said no one has ever worked as a warehouse manager for the past few months. I go in and start looking at what we have in the warehouse and taking notes. Then I started a new Google account on my phone and made a new Excel sheet on it and sorted everything there. By the end of day 1, I had went through most of the things in the warehouse, and I only have 2 words to describe what I saw there. Holy crap! It was such a huge mess, the workers didn't even know what they have in the warehouse. I.e., they need mustard, and they don't find it the moment they look up at the shelves. They buy a new box, and I can say for sure the warehouse was left like this for more than a year, because I found meat in the freezer that was expired since more than 2 years ago. I'm never gonna eat anything with meat in it from that restaurant. Second day on the job, I started actually doing my job by ordering new supplies, sorting the list I made on my phone by type so we can find items in it quickly, putting away the expired products, etc. During my second day, and out of nowhere, the boss comes to the warehouse and gives me a list of everyone in the restaurant and tells me to take their attendance because the guy responsible for this is busy with other things in the kitchen. I tell him I still don't know anyone in the restaurant, but he insists that I can just learn their names while doing my job. Okay, whatever. I'm trying to impress him the first few days, so I will do it. By the end of day 2, I had finished inputting everything into my phone, throwing away all expired ingredients and even taking attendance. All that's left is physically sorting out the warehouse to make it look better, and I will have done a great job, and I was hoping for a good answer from the boss. I go to discuss things with him at the end of my shift. I show him how I sorted everything on my phone and tell him that once he brings over a laptop, we can just move the file there, and it's easy for anyone to check the inventory since it's on Google and all that stuff. Then I explained to him the state of the warehouse when I came and how much I worked to make it better, and he was really impressed and praised me for a job well done. Then I asked how much my salary will be. Him: "Your salary will start at $60, and then as you work, I will improve it, and maybe in a few months, you will reach $120. Me: "What? I can't afford to even stay alive until then. Transportation between here and my house alone is $50. Are you telling me to not eat or pay rent during this month?" At least he cuts me off with an angry voice. "If you don't like it, then you can just leave." I figured that he wasn't someone to be reasoned with, so I immediately answered, "Okay," and left. Bullet successfully dodged. The next day, one of the coworkers there calls me, asking where I keep the list of their inventory because he didn't find it, and I answered that there is no list. He was surprised and asked about the list I showed the boss, and I said, "Oh, that. It was actually on my phone." And he asked me to send it to him, to which I reply with, "I'm sorry, but since I quit, I just removed the file from my phone. Have fun sorting through that mess," and I hang up. It wasn't that big of a victory, but at least I didn't give them the results of my efforts for free. Because it happened like that, my 2 days of work there were unpaid. Edit. 1. Some people are showing concern for me in the comment section, and I'm very thankful to you guys. Don't worry though. About a month ago, I moved from Sudan to Iraq, and a week ago I found a good job, which gets me a good enough salary to cover my expenses here and have some money left. Momzilla breaks down because we won't break the law. Cast. We've got me, we've got Momzilla, we've got the nice bride, and my manager. Okay, so this happened when I was 18. I got a new job at a bridal shop. In this shop, you can wear shoes and buy off the rack or order. We do alterations and nothing we sell is over $1,800. Now we are appointment based, but we take walk-ins. Now we also sell bridesmaids, proms, quinceañera, and other fancy event dresses. This event. One day a girl walks in with 8 bridesmaids and her mother. I greeted them and asked if they had an appointment. Nice bride. No, do we need one? Me. We are appointment based, but Momzilla. Now listen here, you stupid jerk. This is baby's special day, and we will be trying on dresses. Me. I understand. We do take walk-ins, but we are appointment based. Momzilla. Shut up and help us now. Nice bride. Mom, calm down. Can you pencil us in today? Me. Not a problem. We're pretty slow today, and I have an available stylist right now. Thank you so much. Momzilla just rolls her eyes and starts looking at dresses. I thought that was the end. I was very wrong. About 20 minutes later, Momzilla comes storming towards me. Me. Oh, hello Momzilla. Can I help you? Yes, you can. Tell that jerk to bring it out now. Me, starting to lose my cool. I'm sorry, bring what out? The couches and champagne. I am not paying for this appointment without it. Me. Ma'am, you need to lower your voice. You do not have to pay because this is a free appointment. Also, we do not have couches, and you will have to sit in a chair instead. Lastly, we do not have or serve champagne. We would need a license and to have all employees be 21, so we cannot do that. Momzilla broke down in tears. This is where manager comes in. Manager. What's going on here? Momzilla. Your stupid employees won't give me champagne. Manager ended up kicking her out of the store. Nice bride finished her appointment and found the perfect dress. I never had to see Momzilla again. Am I the jerk for wanting to celebrate my achievements? So I, female 21, have an older brother, male 25. In some ways, I was always the gifted child, but that was mostly because I worked my butt off and my mother forced me into way more stuff. The reason I was good at sports and he wasn't was because my mom let him stay home and play Xbox or go out with friends while I spent every spare hour I had training. I'm talking 12 hours per week athletics, Sunday hockey, 8 hours hockey during the week, 6 hours volleyball, Saturday games, badminton, swimming, water sports in the summer. They even made me train with serious injuries to the point where my coach screamed at them for basically ruining me. So being the gifted kid was a curse in my mind. However, I understood when my brother would be celebrated for a C because that was a big deal to him. But even when I got 10 A's in my GCSEs, a big deal, and took 2 A levels early, we didn't celebrate. Eventually, he went to university and nearly failed out and moved home at 21. He decided to join the military. It was a long process of applying, and he used this as an excuse not to get a job or contribute. Eventually, he went to basic training and failed for poor organization, forgetting stuff, talking back to officers, poor hygiene, laundry, just stupid stuff. At the same time, I graduated from university with a first-class degree. I also landed my first job. My aunties had planned a party for me, and my mom made them cancel it and refused to take me because it would upset my brother. I decided after working as a teaching assistant for a year that I wanted to be a teacher. So I have worked my butt off working and studying this year and finally got a place on my dream course. I was so excited. Problem is, my brother got rejected. See, he's also applying for teaching courses, but only because in the UK, they pay you to do these courses. He just wants the money. He did a video interview in a tracksuit. He forgot that he had to prepare a lesson plan for this interview. I'm not surprised, to be honest. I told my parents that I got in, and I was so excited, and my mom was shushing me and telling me to stop. "Your brother didn't get in. Don't upset him." So I asked if we could order a takeaway next week to celebrate, and if she could help me find a flat to live in. She said no, because she didn't want to upset him. And I lost it. I started crying and asked her why I have to hide everything away because he is a failure, and she flipped out, calling me an ungrateful jerk. I'm not allowed to celebrate any of my achievements because my brother fails constantly. Note, my brother didn't hear me call him a failure. Serious edit for info. Sorry, I was really worked up, and I just realized I missed this out as someone pointed it out. My brother does have ADD that affects his organization and memory skills, but he stopped taking his medication and he refuses to take it. He's relied on my mom for literally everything over the years, and he's developed a lack of care. He forgot about his interview because my mom is the one who checks his emails because he needs help. This is part of why I understand why he gets celebrated for a C, which I would get grounded for. A C is a huge deal for him with all he struggled. I always wanted to celebrate him, but I want to be celebrated too. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for wanting to celebrate their achievements or not? Please let us know. Mom sounds like a jerk, to be honest. Trash your own manager and department? You get to do a presentation. True story. Names changed years ago, yada yada yada. Chad was an engineer with a planning and support department for a portion of his company's infrastructure that impacted virtually every other part of the company. Unfortunately, Chad was a real jerk. During less than a year with the company, he had thoroughly trashed everyone in his department to anyone who would listen. He talked about their incompetence, their screw-ups, which were generally minor, and most importantly, their failure to properly support the very mission-critical infrastructure they were responsible for. Every hiccup that occurred, however minor, it was used as ammunition. What Chad told everyone who would listen eventually made it up to managers and directors throughout the company. That wasn't enough though. Chad made the mistake of trashing his own director, who was also his manager. Over the next few months, there was no one even remotely involved with his department who didn't know what Chad was doing, including that manager. Chad's manager and director was Tim, a pretty crappy manager by most measures. He paid about 40% less than the industry average and had a staff of B and C players because of it, but he nevertheless expected absolute dedication from that staff. If he could have had them wash his car and pick up his dry cleaning, those things would have been added to their job descriptions. Tim was also pretty poor when it came to understanding what his own staff did and routinely made things up about their work while talking to other people. Everyone involved knew he was full of crap because what he said made no sense at all. Most rolled their eyes, but people also knew that Tim was a force to be reckoned with. Despite his shortcomings as a manager, the one place Tim excelled was corporate politics. He was able to consistently come through failures without a scratch when those failures would have sidelined anyone else. Tim would play opponents off one another, then stand back and watch the fireworks. He had been at it for years and seemed to have a Teflon coating. Crap that stuck to everyone around him would slide right off. Tim, of course, knew exactly what Chad had been saying. Eventually, Chad's trashing of his own department became so severe and their reputation so tarnished that a large directors meeting was called to discuss the situation. The other department directors were out for blood. Enter Tim's pro-revenge. Tim tasked Chad, the very person responsible for the company gossip that resulted in the high-level meeting, with the job of putting together and then presenting a formal defense against his own gossip. Chad had to spend the next couple of weeks creating a formal presentation and repeatedly submitting it to Tim for approval. The meeting rolled around and Chad was forced to stand up in front of a large group of company directors and managers and formally defend his own manager and department. Everyone at the meeting knew they were only there because of what Chad had been saying, and they sat back and watched him tear himself apart and prove the things he himself had been telling everyone were flat-out lies. Of course, Tim and his department came through completely unscathed, but Chad was thoroughly discredited throughout the company and knew it. He left that company for another within 6 months of that meeting, and last was heard bad-mouthing everyone involved with his new company. Entitled Neighbor arranged the readoption of our dog without our knowledge. So 14 years ago, when I was 10 years old, we moved from London to a farmhouse in the country. Along with us came our family dog, Jasper, who passed last year, but would have been only a year old at the time. Our new neighbors were a typical lovely farmer couple with a small dog called Bonnie, who instantly became friends with Jasper. So the as of yet not entitled neighbor starts taking Jasper along on his walks around the fields, and of course we let him. Moving on a couple of years, and long story short, the neighbor got a pet cat who passed, and then put down Bonnie as he was apparently too sad to live without the cat. Without a dog of his own anymore, neighbor had become fixated on Jasper, often whistling for him whenever neighbor went on his evening walks. And still, we let it happen because Jasper had a lot of energy and walks were always a good idea. A few months later, and my family had decided to move to France. I go ahead with my mom, while my dad and my sister stay in England for a while longer so she can finish her GSCEs. A few weeks before my dad officially joins us, he drives Jasper down to France and drops him off before heading back to England alone. Now for the juicy part. My dad is working in his office, a barn across the street, when he hears the now entitled neighbor whistling for my dog. Entitled neighbor: "Jasper, where are you?" Dad: "He's not here." Entitled neighbor: "What do you mean?" At this point, entitled neighbor actually goes into our house looking for our dog. Dad: "What are you doing?" Neighbor: "Well, I know you're moving, so I called a friend and they said they'd adopt Jasper. I'm here to take him to them. Now where is he?" Dad: "You can't have him. He's in France." Neighbor: "You're lying. Give him to me." It went on like this for a bit, and he was genuinely shocked that we had taken our family dog with us when we moved house and country, and that he couldn't give him to a friend of his. As an aside, this same man once came into our chicken coop and crushed all of the eggs of one of our brooding hens because we had too many chickens. We only had 10 to 15. I thought my mother was actually going to get him for this. Have you ever had a horrible neighbor? If so, what did they do? Please let us know. I can count on one hand how many good neighbors I've had in my life. Yeah, I get a staff discount. I'm staff. So, this was last week. I'm at work, it's a Sunday, I'm at the end of my shift, I'm tired and I want to go home. I've just clocked out and I'm at the till with some fish treatment for a mate and some frozen food for my snake. As usual, the cashier gives me my staff discount. We make conversation, but as there's someone else that wants to pay, I start to leave. That's when I hear this. Lady to the cashier: "I want a discount." Cashier: "I can't give you a discount, I'm afraid." I turn around at this point because I knew cashier is terrible with confrontation. Even me with my anxiety is better at arguing, and I have a feeling a manager may be needed, so it's best I stick around. Lady: "Why not? She got one." She's pointing at me. The cashier calmly explains that I work here, so I'm entitled to a staff discount. Lady: "She doesn't work here. I'm in here all the time and I've never seen her here before." I go over to her and unzip my jacket so she can see my work polo underneath. The company name is clearly on it, and I have work keys on my lanyard around my neck with the company logo on it. Me: "Cashier is right. I do work here." "No, you don't." She throws a dirty look in the cashier's direction. "You two are friends, aren't you? She's giving you stuff cheaper because you're friends. I'll have you fired for this. I deserve a discount." The cashier looks on the verge of tears. Me: "You can either pay for your items and leave with them, or leave without them. It's your call." Lady: "I deserve a discount." I end up going to get the manager from upstairs, and between us, the cashier, and 2 more staff members, we managed to get this woman to just pay for her stuff, full price, and go. I go home, get my rats in the freezer before they defrost. All is well. But that's not the end of it. The same lady came back in today, while I was on tills. She comes straight up to my till with a bunch of items and declares she usually gets a discount. I recognize her, and I've seen this scam before, though never from someone as brazen as this. Me. Oh, really? I've never seen you in here before. The lady points to a colleague. This colleague happens to be one of the ones who witnessed the ordeal last week. Lady. Ask him. He knows who I am. Colleague. Oh yeah. She's the woman last week that demanded we give her a discount because she didn't believe that you worked here. The woman looks mad. If this were a cartoon, there'd be smoke coming out of her ears. Me. Oh, that'll be. The total, I don't remember. It was pretty decent though. I believe she was buying a tank and a setup, so well over 500 quid probably. Lady. And my discount? Me. I can't give you one, I'm afraid. You're new. I always get a discount. I've been here over 2 years actually. Well, I've never seen you before. Me. Really? Because that's what you said last week. That'll be this much. The lady huffs, throws an air stone at me. Not sure if it was on purpose, but it hit me in the face. It's going to bruise. I'm more annoyed that my colleague and I ended up having to reshelve all of the stuff she left on my desk. Fish tanks are heavy. Oh, and the best part? Some colleague sent me a screenshot of a Google review this afternoon. That very woman had left a review saying we ruined her son's birthday because we wouldn't serve her, called us rude and all the usual crap. Manager replied and chewed her out with the truth. What a lad. You want to cancel your service, Karen? Okay, you get no internet for the next 2+ years. Background. I worked for an internet service provider in Australia called iNet. We were at the time one of the biggest providers, but crucially, we did not own our ADSL1 network, and we only on-sold the ADSL1 service from the biggest provider in the country, Telstra. We also had a policy that an ongoing issue should have a case owner, and I was the case owner for this, which is why I got multiple calls about it. Act 1. A wild Karen appears. I get a call from a Karen. While doing an ID check, she provides me her age, and of course, she's in her 40s. Her internet went down. I look at the account, and I can see she's got unsold Telstra service. One thing catches my eye. Although there are thousands of exchanges, central place your connection goes to, shared by multiple suburbs. In the country, and you can't possibly know them all, I know the one she is on, because a few weeks earlier, a friend was considering buying a house in the area, and I looked at this one and found out that there are no free ports, and thus it is impossible to get a new service connected. The waiting list for a new connection was 2.5 years at least. So I asked her to do the troubleshooting steps, and she says she does, but I suspect she's just telling me she is doing it to make me go away. Whatever, nothing I can do about that. We exhaust all the troubleshooting, and I tell her there appears to be a line fault. I can send out a technician, but it will take 3 to 5 working days, and if there is actually nothing wrong with the line, she will be charged $199 plus $40. Numbers might be wrong, it was a while back, but it was at least $200 for every 15 minutes of work to cover technician's time. I play her the disclaimer that outlines this, and she says, "Yeah, I accept." On the recording, I lodge a fault. Act 2, the fault, in our loop. She calls after 2 days, sounding annoyed things are still offline. I tell her it hasn't been 5 days. She hangs up. On the 5th day, I get a technician's report saying, no fault found. Next day she calls. Karen. So, my connection is still offline. It has been 5 days. What's happening? Me. Well, the technician attended the fault, and his report says, no fault found. Karen. What? That's BS. The internet is clearly down and you need to fix it. Me. I don't doubt that the internet is offline, but the fault does not appear to lie within our area of responsibility. I would suggest you check your local equipment. Karen. That's not true. My son is an IT guy and the router is brand new. Me. Okay. Well, I can't speak for the state of your equipment, but our equipment appears to be in working order. Incidentally, I just want to make sure to give you a heads up that we will be placing an incorrect call-out fee on your next invoice. You're lying to me. I didn't see no technicians, and now you want to charge me over $200 based on your lies? I won't let that happen. Me. I assure you, the technician attended the reported fault. However, you did not see them because they probably only went to the exchange, which is approximately 4 kilometers away from you. Karen. You're lying to me. I am not paying the fee. What can I do now? Me. Well, if you are that adamant that your equipment is not at fault, your only option is to file another fault and send the tech out again. It is fairly rare, but it is not impossible the technician was wrong. Karen. And then you'll pretend you send the tech and charge me another incorrect call-out fee. Me. We will most definitely send out another tech, but yes, it is very likely to come back as another NFF, and in that case, a further fee is likely. That's BS. I have been with you for 5+ years, and this is how you treat me? Cancel my service now. I will go to your competitors. They'll want my money. Me. Ma'am, the exchange you're connected to only has Telstra ports and is at 100% utilization. If I cancel your service, you will lose your spot. It is unlikely any of our competitors will be able to provide you any service at all. You should just transfer your service to the next provider. So-called churn. This will allow her to keep her spot. Don't tell me what to do, you lying jerk. You will cancel my service now, or I will do everything in my power to have you fired. Now I'm upset myself. It's a crappy situation, but there's no need to take it out on me. I'm trying to help her, and that's her response? Engage malicious compliance. Me. Okay, ma'am. Hold on for a moment. I'm canceling your service. Okay, cancellation processed. Let me just remind you that the incorrect call-out fee is still due. You won't see a cent of that. Me. Noted. But the amount is over collections threshold, so we will send you to collections. Karen hangs up. Act 3. The joys of the waiting list. About a month later, I get a request to transfer to me. It's Karen. I take a moment to catch up on her file, and the service is canceled and fee invoiced. I run a quick service qualification on her line, and I can see that our service, so-called codes, have dropped off, and there are no other codes on her line. She did not manage to get connected with anyone. Karen. Hello. I think I spoke to you last time. Yes, you did. My internet is still down, and you are still charging me for the fee. I need you to get rid of it. Me. I cannot do that. The charge is valid. Well, I can't pay it. You've ruined my business. I was operating an e-commerce business, and that won't be possible anytime soon. Running a business over residential connection is a breach of customer service agreement, but I let that slide. Me. I am sorry for your predicament, but the fee stands. I'll do you a deal. If you reconnect my service, I will pay the fee. Me. I can probably sign you up again, even though you're behind on payment, but I was not lying to you when I told you that there are no ports on your exchange. It is very unlikely you would get a port. They're all in use. Did you try with our competitors as you said you would? I did. None of them would even try signing me up because they told me they couldn't provide service. Me. We are in the same situation. Why can't you just give me my old spot back? Me. Because it was given to the first person on the waiting list. And how long does the waiting list take? Last I checked, more than 2 years. This is ridiculous. I'm going to TIO. Me. You may do so, as is your right, but to be very clear, we will substantiate the validity of our fee. Whatever. She hangs up. Conclusion. She did in fact file a complaint with TIO, and I handed her case over to a TIO complaint specialist. I made sure to point out that she was breaching terms of service with business over residential service. TIO obviously ruled in our favor, and we were allowed to send her to actual collections. Before I left the company, about 1.5 years later, I caught up on her file, and she had filed a loss of business claim, which was summarily closed because residential connections have no service level agreement. Last contact was her speaking to our credit team, asking them to make sure they mark her debt as paid with our collections people and make sure this is reflected on her credit rating. There were still no codes on her line. It is quite unlikely she got any reasonably priced service connected for at least 2 years, realistically longer, as demand only ever went up. How mad do you get when your internet goes out? And would you ever lose your temper on the tech support over the phone? Please let me know. All she had to do was ask for a manager. They would have fixed it right away. Snowmobile Karen gets humiliated by owner. So this happened about a week ago when I was asked to fill in for a friend at a ski center. Yes, ski centers are allowed to be open in my country due to it being outside. The layout of the area is somewhat important to the story, so allow me to give you a short tour. There are 5 ski lifts from left to right, family lift, kiddie lift, which is just a rope that the kids hold on to and it takes them about 10 meters up. 2 anchor lifts beside each other, and the last one leads to the street, which is for rails and jumps. None of them are gondola lifts, as the center only requires anchor lift. I was working at the so-called family lift, which is meant for families with kids. This means that the slope is small compared to the rest, so that everyone in the family can ride together. Next to the lift I was working at is a sledding slope, which is for people who just want to come sledding, and this is free, meaning you don't need a ski pass to enter. Also, every lift has a snowmobile, and I had mine parked next to the lift so I could have somewhere to sit if I wanted to, and due to the cold, the suspension was somewhat frozen, which meant that when someone took a seat on the snowmobile, it made a sound. Now to the story. We have entitled Snow Karen, Hex Spawn 1 and 2, and me. I was helping a girl onto the lift as she was having problems. That was one of my tasks at work. And when I had my back turned while helping the girl, I heard the suspension creak, and my first thought was, oh, my turn to go get lunch, as I thought it was my coworker. But nope. I turn around and see 2 of Karen's Hex Spawn trying to start the snowmobile. Me, hey, what on earth do you think you're doing? Hex Spawn 1, we want to drive the snowmobile. Spawn 2, yeah, we're going to drive it up the slope. Me, no, you can't do that. You're not old enough. You have to be at least 16 to drive one, and they were about 5 or 6. And you can't drive this unless you work here. Spawn 2, but Mom said we could. Me, I don't care what your mom says. You are not allowed on it. I need you to leave. And guess who cut me off? Karen, why are you talking to my babies? Me, ma'am, are they your Hex Spawn? Yes. Now tell me why you're talking to them. Me, they were on the snowmobile and trying to start it to take it for a joyride. So, I told them they could. Me, ma'am, they can't do that. They're not old enough. They don't work here, and they haven't been trained on how to operate it. Karen, oh, stop being so rude. Just teach them how to operate it now. Me, I can't. They're not old enough, and unless you work here, you are not allowed to drive it on the area. Spawn 1, Mom, I want to drive. Spawn 2, tell him to start it. Karen, now look at what you've done. You've made them sad. I demand you start the snowmobile and let them ride. At this point, one of our regulars and former coworkers comes to the lift and gave me a look. You need help, son? I told him, oh, hi, Mike, not his real name. Tell boss I said hello. I know it sounds cheesy to say we used a code, but we have all been told that if we are in a situation where we need the owner and we don't want to say it out loud for one reason or another, to, if possible, tell someone who works or has worked there to tell the owner I said hello, and the boss would come down if possible. Anyway, he understood and he went up to the lift and got down the slope towards the office. Now during that 10-second window, the entitled Karen had climbed the fence and joined her kids at the snowmobile to get it started. And then something struck me, and I don't know why I didn't notice it before, but not one of them was in ski gear. No helmets, ski boots, skis, or anything, and the Karen had left 2 sleds behind the fence. Me, still somehow polite. Ma'am, why aren't any of you in ski gear? Karen, because we decided to just go sledding. Me, you can't be on this side of the gate if you aren't planning to ski. Yes, we can. We are paying customers. We ate inside the restaurant. Me, doesn't matter, and you can't be here unless you're going to ski. Now shut up, you little idiot. We are paying customers, and that means we have the right to be here, and the right to ride the snowmobile. At this point, I lost it, and I decided to use my army voice. We have compulsory military service in my country. Me, okay, that's it. Get off the snowmobile, now. I commanded them, and they all looked shocked. I guess they never expected a reaction like that from me. Karen's still being shocked. How dare you talk to me like that? You need to show your elders some I cut her off. Me, I've tried to be polite and to tell you kindly to leave the snowmobile, and yet you still refused. Do you realize that your kids could get hurt if they drove this thing? You and your kids need to leave, as you clearly have no right nor deserve the right to be here. At this point, she tried to play the victim card when a family of 6 came to the lift. Karen, help! Help! This boy is harassing me and my babies. Luckily for me, the family didn't believe her when I explained the situation and I assured them that I didn't need help. Now the Karen decided that she would play the infamous I know the owner card. Karen, with a smug look on her face, said, You know, I know the owner. So unless you want to lose your job, I suggest you start the snowmobile. Don't know why she didn't care about my warning about her kid's safety. Me. Oh, you know the owner? Yes. At this point, I saw the owner walking towards us as the regular had sent him. Me. Well, here's your chance to explain to him why I should get fired, I said as I waved at him. I could see Karen worry a little, but she quickly shook it off. Owner. So, what's the problem here? Karen flew into a rant. Your employee has been so rude towards me and my kids and refused to let my babies ride the snowmobile, even though I know we are allowed to do so as paying customers. Owner. No, you are not allowed to because it's dangerous and wasteful. Also, I can see that none of you are dressed to be on this side of the fence, and thus I can assume you have not paid to be here. Karen. Well, what about him? She said as she pointed at me. He's not dressed for skiing either. Owner. Well, that's because he works here and should not be dressed for skiing. Karen, slowly realizing she's fighting a losing battle, decided to go for the harassment claim. Well, he harassed me and my babies, and I demand he is fired for his behavior. Now, the owner is a chill guy and has a great sense of humor and does not take BS from anyone, and he saw he had an amazing chance to strike down this Karen. Owner. Well then, should we see what audio the cameras have recorded? No, that is not necessary, but I demand he be fired for his behavior. The owner cut her off. And I guess I should also tell my daughter that her boyfriend is a horrible person for harassing a mother and her kids, right? Oh, how devastated she will be, he said sarcastically. You see, what entitled Karen didn't know is that I've been dating the owner's daughter for 2 years, and when I have time, I spend the weekends at her family's house. Now the Karen realized that her battle was lost, and just on cue started shrieking about how she will leave a horrible Facebook review, how the police will hear about this, how she will never come back because we are so horrible to customers, yada yada yada. You guys know the drill. After she left, me and the owner started laughing, and he said he would save the security footage because he wanted to keep this as a Karen takedown trophy. Not long after, I got my lunch break, and I called my girlfriend to tell her about the encounter, and she started laughing as well. I do hope I get to see her again, so I can ask her if she would like to see the owner again. Thanks for reading. Hope you guys liked it. Speaking of skiing, have you ever gone skiing? Or how about snowmobiles? Please let us know. Oh, how I love snow. It's cold just like my heart. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend her nannies were paid to raise her? I, 21 male, have a girlfriend named Anna, 21 female, who comes from a very rich family while I came from a middle-class family. And while I did grow up with a lot of privileges, none of them were in the same level as hers. Anna grew up in a home where house staff, nannies, and bodyguards were commonplace, and while she's a very nice and down-to-earth person, she always had a very sheltered reality. For example, she's the kind of person who has a savings account, doesn't eat out every day, and regularly donates to charity, but thinks that Apple products are perfect gifts for whenever she doesn't know what to get someone. A few days back, we were talking about holidays, and I asked her how she spent Mother's Day. Since her mother passed when she was a baby and her father never remarried, she just said that the only usual thing she did on Mother's Day was that she visited her mom's grave in the morning with her father. I got confused by that. Then I asked how she spent the rest of the day, and she mentioned that growing up, she would make cards and give them to the nannies, and they would spend the day playing and eating the sweets she asked her father to order. I just kind of laughed at that point, and she asked me what I was laughing about. Then I told her, you know, the nannies were just doing their jobs, right? She got annoyed and told me that she knew, but they raised and loved her, and the least she could do was to give them their due. And that was when I think I might be the jerk. After she told me that, I joked, yeah, I bet the fat paycheck certainly helped them to love you. Because when I said that, she got quiet, grabbed her things, and left. Since then, she's been cold towards me and told me she's rethinking our relationship, but I really think she's overreacting. What do you guys think? Am I the jerk? Edit. So, after I posted my post and saw how it blew up with everyone ripping into me, I was still skeptical. But then after I read some comments doing a breakdown of my post and pointing out how bad was the crap I said, I started to think that maybe I was in the wrong. Then I started receiving messages from many actual jerks saying that they agree with me. After those messages, I saw that, yeah, I'm the jerk. I went and apologized to my girlfriend, told her I was being an ignorant, spiteful, malicious jerk, quoted some of you guys, and that I want her to know that what I said was BS, and that even if she never forgave me, she should know that I was just being a jerk for the heck of it, and she did nothing wrong. She told me she knew it was BS and forgave me for what I said, but decided to dump me anyway. If things go well, we'll still be friends. If not, at the least, we're parting ways amicably. She'll be fine. Said she'll go and spend time with her father back at home for a while. I decided to stay single until I sorted out my own issues, and that's it. Believe it or not, but I read every single reply and saw how wrong I was about nannies and by default all care workers. I won't justify what I said because I think it would be a cheap attempt to erase that I was a grade A jerk, but I will apologize anyway. Sorry for being a total jerk. No one has to forgive, but I want to apologize anyway. Well, thank you for all the input and insults. I very much needed them. Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
He really was, but at least he realized his mistake.
My father buys my old laptop off me after my entitled aunt demands I give it to her. This happened in 2016. I bought a new laptop because even though the old one was only a year old, it didn't perform the way I wanted to, and I was fed up with it. I don't know how my aunt found out that I got a new laptop, but she did. A few days after I got my new computer, she volunteered to pick my younger sister up from her high school track practice, and when I went to open the door, my aunt was standing at the door with my sister.
Hi, sweetie. I heard you got a new laptop. What are you planning on doing with the old one?
She immediately asked. I sighed. Well, I'm not done transferring the files over to the new one yet, but I'm planning on keeping it around. And she immediately asks,
Can I have it?
I hesitated. I have a lot of sensitive information on my laptop, and I would rather keep it. And my aunt asked,
Well, can't you just erase all that information?
I explained that it wasn't that easy, and in the wrong hands, that information could be used against me, and that I would be keeping the laptop. I didn't tell her that I didn't trust my aunt's friends, especially after she had let an escaped convict live with her for a while, but that's another story for another time. She just huffed and pulled the whole,
But we're family,
followed by,
I'll be talking to your dad about it.
As soon as my aunt left, I sent my dad a text saying about how she wanted my old laptop, but I didn't want to give it to her. My dad said that we could discuss things more when he got home and to not give my laptop to my aunt. Well, after dinner, my aunt stopped by again because my sister left a pin in her car and she wanted to drop it off, which was a huge load of bull. I know why she was there. So my aunt goes,
So, OP, are you done with your old laptop?
And I told her, No, I'm not, but I'm not giving you my old laptop. She then turned to my father.
Do you believe that? She won't give me her old computer. She has a new one.
And my father told her, Why should OP give you her old laptop? It's hers. She gets to decide what to do with it. My aunt goes,
Can't you make her give it to me?
My father, Nope, she's an adult and she bought the laptop with her own money. Not to mention, wife and I were planning on buying it off of her because her younger sister's laptop broke. My aunt,
You're going to buy it from her?
Yup, she bought it with her own money, so it seems only fair. My father turned to me. OP, how much did you pay for your old laptop? Me, Well, it was $300 when I bought it. My father took out his wallet and said, Would you take $100 for the laptop? Me, Absolutely. My father hands me 5 $20 bills, turns to my aunt and says, That settles it. I own the laptop now, and I'm going to be giving it to my youngest. So no, you can't have the laptop. My aunt then turned to the door and walked out without another word. Once my aunt left the house and drove off, I asked my father, Are you seriously buying the laptop off of me? My dad, Yup. Me, You know I would have just given it to younger sister. You didn't need to buy it. My dad, I know. Me, thinking my dad was pulling my leg. So I get to keep the money? Dad, Yup. We were going to need to buy your sister a new laptop anyway, and this way your laptop stays here and your mother and I save a few $100s. My aunt did something similar a few weeks ago and asked if she could have my old phone after I got a new cell phone. After I pointed out that my old phone would only work on the Can You Hear Me Now? Good network, and unless she had that service provider, the phone would be useless, my aunt dropped the matter. Am I the jerk for kicking out my cousin and his wife after they berated me for working instead of watching their kids? I, female 36, took in my cousin, male 37, and his wife and 2 kids who are 6 and 3 a month ago. My cousin lived in a rented apartment for 4 months but couldn't continue paying because of his financial issues. He said he wanted to go live with his parents, but they live far away and he can't move away from work. I decided to let them move in until he could figure something out with his work. Also, my aunt asked me, so I found it rude to say no. I'm a pediatrician. My schedule is busy. I work in ICU. It's draining both physically and emotionally. Sometimes I can't even find time for lunch. I work long day shifts / evening shifts and night shifts, depends on my schedule. My cousin's kids are very active. I have many items that they broke, including a lamp I received as a gift. They even broke my late husband's vase. I told them this can't happen again. My cousin didn't replace the stuff, complaining about his situation. My place got filthy and uncomfortable. I started spending more time covering shifts to get away from all that mess. The thing is, whenever my cousin and his wife go out, they'd ask me to stay home and watch the kids. I only did it twice. I told them I have other commitments and responsibilities. I already said I'm not available to babysit. My cousin threw a fit. I suggested getting a babysitter, but he said he won't ever let me pay. 2 days ago, he and his wife went out and told me to watch the kids for 2 hours. I had a shift I needed to get to on time. The 2 hours passed and I got ready to go to work. I kept calling them, but the line was busy. I had no choice but to leave the kids with my neighbor, a mom in her 40s, and sent my cousin a text to let him know. At 11 p.m., I turned my phone on and found missed calls and one text from his wife berating me for leaving her kids with a stranger and called me irresponsible and neglectful. I was stunned. My cousin was mad, saying they couldn't count on me with the kids for 2 hours, insulted my job. I got home and argued with them, told them they were out of line and that they needed to leave. He tried to get me to talk to my aunt on the phone to get me to change my mind, but I'd had it, especially since they said that I might be doing the same neglecting with my patients. I argued with my aunt and hung up on her. They left, but my cousin didn't stop guilting me, trying to convince me to take them back. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you kick them out or not? Please let us know.
I wouldn't have let them move in the first place.
Play t-ball by the book? Okay, playing t-ball by the book. I was coaching a coach pitch t-ball baseball league for my son's team. This is coach pitch t-ball level, 1 or 2 steps up from parents being on the field. You pitch 3 times. If the kids don't swing at it 3 times, they get the batting tee and get to hit it. If they swing 3 times and miss, they are out. If they miss the tee, they are also out. We were playing a team who had also not been beaten. Even though no official scorebook was kept, parents always kept score. I didn't care. It's supposed to be for fun for everyone, including parents. So just before the game starts, I talk to the coach for the other team. I tell him that, since the point and fun part of the game is to hit the ball, I let the kids take a few swings if they miss. He says loudly, "Nope, that's not in the rules. It says in the rules they get 1 swing at the tee, and if they miss, they are out. Rules are rules." He waddles to the dugout and gets his rules binder and points out the rule. Parents on both sides are shaking their heads. But hey, rules are rules, so I walk away. My team bats, and we score a few before I get 3 outs. 3 outs or 9 hitters was the rule. So the opposing coach comes out with his very large, somewhat lame, limping assistant, and the assistant coach kneels down to pitch. I call timeout. I then pointed out that the lame assistant coach is pitching too close. He's supposed to be no closer than 5 feet, 2-ish meters, from the regular pitcher's mound. I even had his stick already on the ground to point out the spot. Assistant coach says they have always pitched from where he is. I say, "Sorry, rules are rules. That's what the book says." So he gets up from his kneeling position and walks to the stick. He isn't real happy with me. Then the assistant coach kneels down on both knees to pitch, and I stop them again. "Sorry, coach, the rules say you can't stand or kneel on one knee to pitch. You have to stand after you throw the pitch." I look at the head coach. "Rules are rules, you know." The assistant coach explains that his knees can't bend that quickly, and he had surgery. I just sort of shrug and start flipping through the rulebook. The head coach comes out to pitch. Head coach throws an underhand pitch, and I have to stop him again. "Hey man, really sorry about this, but the rules say you can't throw underhand. Elbow has to be below the wrist. Think of darts. Rules are rules." He just glared at me. Now, I'm big on kids having fun, so even though I was a jerk to the coaches, I was high-fiving and cheering his kids on, even helping them know what they should do. After a fly ball was caught by the opposing team, a Heisman-ish level of performance at this stage, the kid ran up to me and high-fived me before handing me the ball. Kids are having fun. My kids are loving it. Both teams are scoring a ton. I don't even know the score, but his team knows, so they get the last ups. His stud hitter rocks a line drive that whizzes by everyone in the outfield and passes the pylons. Normally, I let this be a home run, but rules are rules. I put up both hands and yell, "Ground rule double." The coach waddles over to talk about how far it went, but I point out that the cones outline the line and any ball that rolls past is a ground rule double. Rules are rules. Then I yell, "That's game," because that was his ninth batter. That left a kid on second, the hitter, and a kid on third. His parents had already told him they were down by 1 run when the last kid came up. Any hit would have probably scored both kids, but not a ground rule double. In the meantime, I told the kid from his team that he hit the ball further than I had ever seen anyone hit the whole year and gave him a fist bump while he jumped up and down celebrating. We gave them a cheer and the two teams high-fived one another. Both coaches basically said, "Good game," and walked off sulking. My parents thought it was hilarious. His parents came over and congratulated me for sticking it to their coach, who was a huge pain in the butt. The next time we played them, his kids were a lot more fun, and the parent coaching them, new guy, let them swing at the tee more than once. "Sorry, I don't work here." Yes, she does. I'm lucky enough to live somewhere with 0 cases. Our day-to-day lives aren't really impacted at all. Now to the story. Today, a friend/colleague and I decided to meet for brunch at a cafe in order to go over the content we will be covering in the new school year, which will be starting in a little over a week. I arrived first and sat outside, waiting for her. Summer here. A few minutes later, she turns up. Note, she's wearing a black shirt and black shorts. She dumps her bags containing textbooks and laptop on the table. We quickly greet each other. She asks if I want a coffee. I say yes and ask if she can also grab water. We have bought each other coffee numerous times, so I didn't think I needed to clarify what I wanted. My mistake. She heads into the cafe to order. As she's leaving the table, an older lady walks into the outdoor area and sits at the table next to us. Less than a minute after walking inside the cafe, my friend sticks her head out the door and confirms my order. Naturally, she had it right, but it was nice of her to check. Her head pops back into the cafe. It seems the older lady sitting at the table next door took note of this exchange and made an assumption. A minute later, my friend exits the cafe with a large bottle of water in one hand and 2 small tumblers in the other. This, combined with the previous order check, obviously cemented the lady's previous assumption. The lady perks up and asks my friend if she could also get her water and take her order. My friend laughs kindly and said, "I don't work here, but with what I'm wearing, I understand why you think I do." As a regular lurker on this sub, I watch on with gleeful anticipation. Sadly, I was let down. The older lady also laughs, and as my friend places the water and glasses on our table, the lady apologizes. I turn to the lady and with a big cheeky grin, observed, She does actually work here. I don't know why she is saying she doesn't." There's a pause. My friend looks at me. The lady looks at me. I know I'm grinning like an idiot. My friend exclaims and laughs, "Oh, Onos, why do you always have to make things so difficult?" while gently swatting me on the shoulder. The lady, who's standing by this point, obviously catches on that I'm being a jerk and says her husband is exactly the same, while also gently swatting me on the shoulder. We all have a laugh and move on with our day.
If that was a Karen, you could have been in a whole heap of trouble.
Entitled neighbor thinks she has a right to our cabin/land when we are not up there. My family owns a few cabins up in Michigan that we rent out throughout the year. We have one that is our main one. It's on a lake perched on a hill so you can see it from far away. My siblings and I have kids now and are all in our 30s, so someone is usually up there from April through November with maybe a few empty weekends here and there. Our neighbors on the bottom of the hill suck. They are a couple from out west who ripped down the 2 old cottages on the land they bought and built an ugly, modern-looking home that would fit in a large city rather than on a lake. The bad thing about building such a large home is the lack of yard space, and they love to cry to us about how their kids have no backyard, and if we could sell some of our yard to them, it would be great. Well, we love our yard. It's big enough that we had 2 weddings there, can have a full family reunion with 100+ people, and still have room to play yard games without being in the way. So every time this family has asked to purchase a part of it, we say no. We do have an old chicken wire fence between the properties, and we have grass, whereas they just have forest floor around their home, so it's really easy to see where the 2 properties stop. So just last weekend, my dad got a call from one of our other neighbors that they saw the bad neighbor up on the hill walking around our cabin with a few other people she did not recognize. So my dad did what every homeowner would do and called the cops. He's drinking buddies with a few of them during the warmer months, so they went out to go check the place really quick. Now this part is all from the cop my dad is friends with. Turns out when they got there, the bad neighbor was walking around with her friends trying to set up a kids' outdoor winter park in the snow. The cops asked if she had permission, and she lied to their faces, saying she was in the process of closing on the land and that she's in the process of ripping the cabin down to turn it into a small snow park for the area. Well, the cops told her that she was trespassing, that they were called here by the owner who they were friends with. I guess bad neighbor got really quiet and started to try and walk away, but was ticketed along with her friends for trespassing. I guess they also laid into them that if someone got hurt while they were out here illegally, they would be liable for anything. And then he said he's recommending my family put up a restraining order if she's caught up there again. This isn't the first time she's been on our property without permission. We've caught her out on our dock smoking, and she's picked a few of our veggies from the summer garden, both of which are on the other side of the hill from her. We're going up there once it gets warm enough to install more cameras, as right now we only have ones right above the doors and garages. Edit. Well, showed my dad this and he laughed really hard. We both agree with everyone who is saying we need a higher or newer fence. We do for sure, and now my dad is thinking of building a stone wall. We do have solar lights out there and motion lights above all the doors along with an alarm system, but yeah, now thinking of getting a motion-activated game cam and a spotlight down on the hill. My now ex-boyfriend didn't get what he expected for his birthday. So, some backstory before I start the story. This happened about halfway through last year for my now ex-boyfriend's, male 19, birthday. We were dating at the time and had been dating for just over a year in case of any confusion. I, female 18, have been out of a job since my casual job randomly dropped me in late 2019, which said ex laughed and condescended at me for. So money has been hard for me to come by, and I often don't have a lot on hand for gift giving during birthdays. I have a family of 4 siblings and 3 parents, including my stepdad and stepsister. And within the week and a half before this story took place, my mom, dad, and stepdad all had their birthdays, so my bank account was basically dry, less than $5. Entitled boyfriend knew I didn't have a lot of money and sometimes brought it up at awkward times. In the evening of this story, I really wasn't feeling in the mood for physical affection because I had been anxious all day. I have anxiety, and whilst I wasn't grumpy and I did my best to be cheerful for his birthday, I just felt overwhelmed with cuddles, kisses, etc. The characters. We've got me, and we've got ex-boyfriend. The story. So ex-boyfriend invited me to his birthday celebration with him and his family, which of course I accepted because I wanted to help him celebrate his special day, and his family was basically a second family to me, so I had no qualms. I had an anxiety attack, however, because, as mentioned in the backstory, I had very little money to buy a meaningful gift for him, which made me feel guilty because he was often going out of his way to give me small surprises, and I never had enough money to be able to do the same. Although, whenever I tried to return the favor, it would either be rejected or I would somehow feel as though it was inadequate. Ex-boyfriend was very into Lego and Star Wars, so I made and decorated a cake. Cake decorating is my passion. For his birthday, featuring the iconic "It's over, Anakin, I have the high ground" scene from Revenge of the Sith, using Lego minifigures to decorate, which had been a long-standing promise. In addition to this, I decided to bake him a Nutella swirled blondie slice because I had the ingredients to do so. I know it was terrible of me to not have had the foresight to save up and get him something more meaningful, and I'm learning from that experience for the future with my current boyfriend. I should probably mention, ex-boyfriend is a very picky eater, and I've sometimes been on the receiving end or in the vicinity of his food-related tantrums. Once he pushed away a bowl of stew I'd brought home from food studies for him because it contained traces of dried apricots. It should be noted that he was enjoying the stew before I told him it was in there, after I'd forgotten to list it in the ingredients before he started eating. And I was rather anxious about whether he'd like the slice I made him. Anyway, he opened the tin and his face fell. Absolute disappointment I've never seen anywhere else, ever. I asked if he was okay, and he said, "It's not what I expected." I said I knew, and I wished I could have done better for him, after everything he's done for me. He put the tin to the side and was rather withdrawn, and I felt terrible, even though I knew I'd tried with what I had. Later on, we were upstairs in his room, and, as mentioned in the backstory, I wasn't in the mood for cuddles, although I made an effort to try, even though I just felt terrible and exhausted, although he insisted on affection. I brought up his birthday present, and I said that he had looked very disappointed, and his explanation was, paraphrased, "I wasn't expecting that." Me: "What were you expecting?" Ex-boyfriend: "Well, I'd been making hints for ages that I wanted this Lego set. I thought I made that clear when I suggested that $50 be the maximum limit we spend on each other for birthdays and Christmas, and I've been talking about this set for a while." Me: "Hold on, you expected me to get you this Lego set?" Every time you've mentioned it, it sounded as though you were planning on buying it. I know what I gave you was far from ideal, and I feel terrible because I wanted to get you something better, but I don't have money, let alone $50 lying around. I know it's not to your expectations, and I'm truly sorry, but I did the best with what I could. Ex-boyfriend. I thought I was pretty clear with what I wanted, but I guess. In the most weary, let down voice. You know, the one people put on when they're trying to put on a brave face. You know what? It's fine. I felt even worse because I felt as though I'd truly let him down, especially after everything he and his family have done for me. Later, he messaged me saying he had tried the slice and it tasted all right. Entitled Karen Thinks My Parents' Land is Hers. So, a little backstory, as it'll be much needed in this story. My parents live in a gated community and got their house custom built. They purchased the land separately, as originally they were selling it all together, and all they needed was 3 acres, not 5, for the house. So they purchased one plot for the house and the other plot next to it and left it empty for privacy, since if they bought it all together, they would have had to pay double the property tax. Now onto the story. It was about 7 p.m. and 25 minutes until sundown, so I was in my room texting when I saw flashlights on the land we have next to the house. So I told my dad and we both went out there, thinking it was the HOA, as they usually check to see if the trees aren't overgrown. So we went out there and see what we'll know as Karen in this story. Her husband, and her son, which looked to be about 14 to 16, with a BB gun and traps. This is where it starts. Dad: Hey, can we help you? Karen:
No, we're just hunting. This is a really nice neighborhood.
First off, how did she even get in? Unless she had a code or knew someone who lived here, she couldn't even get in. Dad: Sorry, but we own this land and you can't hunt here. Also, no animals come through here except squirrels or some occasional deer. Karen:
No, this is public land. And okay, we will set traps for the deer.
This is where the Kevin, aka the father, comes in. Kevin:
Is there a problem?
Karen:
They say they own this land, but I doubt that.
I went into the house and called the community security. They were obviously trespassing, as even when my dad said it was private-owned land, they set traps. I didn't hear the rest of the conversation, but when the security came, this is what happened. Karen:
This man is bullying my son for hunting.
Security: This is private-owned property. Even if it wasn't, you can't hunt in a community you don't live in. Turns out they were already looking for her, as when they were looking over the community gate footage, they followed behind another car that put in the code. Long story short, they were kicked out of the neighborhood, and if they ever come back without a valid reason, they would get trespassed and the police will be called. The whole time, the son just looked embarrassed and looked like he didn't even want to go hunting. I'll update this when I get the full story on what happened when I went inside. Update: This is what happened when I went inside. Karen's husband:
Even if you do own this land, you obviously don't use it. Come on, we drove an hour to come here, and you seriously can't let us hunt deer?
Dad: No, I'm sorry, but Karen:
Plus, it'll be good for the community. Less deer is less noise in the middle of the night. It can also stop accidents from the deer getting run over.
Dad: That's up to the community if you can hunt deer, and I might use the land in the future. I don't want dead deer on the land. From what my dad said, they didn't have a car big enough to put the deer meat in, so most likely they were going to leave it there. Karen:
Exactly. By us getting the deer, it'll stop them from being on the land when you build it. And you can just take the deer. It should be easy.
Dad: I'm going to call security if you don't leave. How did you get in here? Do you live here? Karen's husband:
It's not up to you. We will wait for security.
My dad was walking to come in and call security, but he didn't know I went inside to call them. They came around a minute later. Getting revenge by pouring a pint of Coke on a customer. Just to set the scene of how much of a jerk this regular customer was. 2 weeks before this story takes place, this particular customer walked into the restaurant on a Wednesday night with about 40 people. The restaurant was only about 120 covers, and we rarely filled more than 70 of them midweek, so only had 2/3 servers on unless we had large bookings, demanding a table for all of them. Being a regular, the host already knew he was a piece of work, but the horror on her face when he revealed that he didn't have a booking still haunts me to this day. The host calls the general manager over, who's delighted at the opportunity to up our sales for the night, and sits them in an area of the restaurant that's kept closed unless we're particularly busy. Unfortunately, I was the server with the most experience that night, so I ended up serving them along with a few other tables, while the other servers picked up the empty tables in my area. Long story short, They were all generally jerks all night, got far too drunk, made far too much noise, mistreated the runners because they couldn't carry out 40 plates of food in one go, etc. I gave them the best darn service I could have given, only to receive a 25-cent tip. And when the general manager questioned him, he responded, "I'm a regular here, and I never tip because I don't believe in it. So count yourself lucky that you're getting anything." Manager is not happy. Back to the story. Jerk customer returns for his bi-weekly meal with his family, and much to my dismay, ends up sat in my area. I go over to the table and am greeted with,
Oh, for goodness sake, not you again.
the effort it took not to say, "I was thinking the same thing," was unreal. I ignored it and carried on. His wife and daughter, being visibly irritated and embarrassed by his behavior, at least made me feel a little bit better. Orders taken, starters are done, main course is out. I go to do a check back and offer another round of drinks. Along with a few other drinks around the table, his son orders a pint of Coke. When I get back to the table with the drinks, being the jerk that he is, Jerk refuses my polite request to move slightly so that I can pass drinks around, and ignores me when I ask if he can pass the drinks over for me, leaving me no option but to lean over the table. Restaurant is pretty cramped. They were in a corner of the room. It's unfortunate, but it happens. I pass the first drink over to his daughter, leaving only the pint of Coke on the tray I'm carefully balancing in my other hand. As I return to standing to get the pint of Coke, I mess up. The pint glass has fallen on my tray in the direction of Jerk customer and literally rained down an entire pint of Coke and ice all over the guy. I'm holding back laughter. His wife and daughter are losing their crap laughing. His son only seems concerned that he isn't getting the pint of Coke he wanted. I look up to see neighboring tables, who I can only presume heard him being a jerk, chuckling. And then in the distance across the room, manager's face has contorted into some bizarre display of both amusement and fear. Now comes the expected bad treatment from angry customer. Manager literally runs to my defense. Jerk customer stands up, picks up his wife, and announces that they are leaving and won't be coming back, much to the dismay of his son, who is literally cramming spaghetti into his mouth as fast as he can. Kid was clearly hungry. Can't really blame him. The guy looks like he's been involved in some kind of Coke and Mentos experiment gone wrong. Manager apologizes profusely and doesn't charge them. Every front of house employee in the restaurant thanked me when it became clear in the following weeks that he really wasn't coming back. Surprisingly, the cleanup wasn't that bad. His hair and clothes seemed to have absorbed the majority of the liquid, and it was pretty much just ice on the floor. The neighboring table said as they were leaving, "We'll definitely be coming back, and we hope the entertainment is just as good next time." Manager didn't mention it until I handed in my notice, and all he wanted to say was it was the best thing he's ever witnessed a server do to a customer. Messing up never felt so good. Speaking of soda, what's better, Coke or Pepsi? Please let us know.
Definitely not RC. I can't stand that stuff.
Entitled parent left their kid at the airport. Back when I used to work at an airport, I often dealt with kids traveling without parents. This was a paid service called Unaccompanied Minors, available to everyone under 18, but mandatory to kids under the age of 12 who traveled alone. The rule is that the parent or guardian, or whoever escorts them, for the sake of clarity, I'll just refer to them all as parents from this point, has to stay at the airport until the plane is in the air. This was in case the flight was canceled, because the paid service did not cover anyone staying with the kid until the next flight. The most extreme case would obviously be that there'd be no flight available that day anymore, in which case the kid would have to go home and come back the next day. Obviously, most parents were fine with going to the gate with their kids and staying until the very last minute. In all my years, I only had trouble with one entitled dad. He came to the business counter with his kid, which was already a big no-no, as checking in unsupervised kids takes longer than average, and the business counter was, well, supposed to be a fast lane for business class and high-tier passengers. The dad shows his own gold card, so I bit back my annoyance and asked the person next to me to check in my queue until I was done. I gave the dad all the forms he had to fill, which already annoyed him. The kid was obviously under 10 and seemed very sweet. She looked relaxed, and I guessed she had done this plenty of times. Over the years, you learn to spot the ones who are not accustomed to traveling alone. The dad gave me back the forms and asked,
"So, where do I leave her?"
I got a bit confused but told him, like always, that he had to stay at the airport until the plane was in the air. Entitled dad.
"What? No, I paid for her to be accompanied."
Me. Well, yeah, from the gate to the plane and from the plane to arrivals. Entitled dad.
"I have a meeting in a town 3 hours away. I can't stay with her."
Me. Sir, what if the flight is canceled? We'd have to call you back.
She'd stay here with you, wouldn't she?
Me. That's not a possibility. Sir, you agree to the terms when you pay.
I didn't pay for this. Her mother did, and she told me I could just leave the kid with you.
At this point, the kid started crying. Daddy, please, come with me.
Don't start. You like flying, don't you?
Kid, Mom always comes with me.
I don't care. I don't have the time. I want to speak to your manager.
While we waited for my supervisor, we heard an announcement through the loudspeakers about a car in the no parking zone. The entitled dad went, "Crap!" and ran away, leaving his daughter at my counter. She started crying in earnest, and I panicked that the dad was taking this opportunity to bail. My supervisor came. We closed my counter completely. The queue was almost empty at this point, and took the kid aside to talk over our options, hoping that the dad would come back. After 5 minutes and no dad later, we tried to call him. His number was on the papers he had signed. No answer. Then we tried the mom, whose contact info was also on the papers. She said she'd call the dad and asked if there was any way we could take the kid to the gate if he didn't appear, if she promised she'd be there in about 30 minutes. We told her that there was still plenty of time before the flight left and that they could skip the security queue so we could make a little exception and wait for her at the check-in with the kid, but that we wouldn't let the kid go to the gate without the parent. The mother was understanding and told us that either she or the dad would be there soon. A few minutes later, the dad did come back, arguing over the phone with who we assumed was the mom. He yanked the daughter away and took her through security. We felt bad, but thought that was that. Nope. I went back to my counter to finish the check-in and then got a call from the gate telling me that the dad had left the kid with them. Obviously, there's a lot to do before a flight leaves, so they couldn't really look after her, and they asked if I could try to see him and tell him to come back. I didn't manage to spot him, and my supervisor told me to go sit with the kid while she, again, called the mom. My shift was about to end, so I didn't have to hurry anywhere except home, and I agreed to work a little overtime. The kid was in tears, and my shift manager had to get involved. While my supervisor called the mom, the shift manager called the airline asking if we can allow the kid on the flight if there's no parent present when the flight leaves. We were a ground handling company and did not directly work for any airline. They told us straight up that no. Fortunately, I then got a call from my supervisor telling me the mom had arrived. To make things easier at the security, me and the kid went back to check-in. The mom signed new forms and escorted the kid through security again. The kid made the flight fine and it left on time. The mom was so embarrassed about the whole incident, but didn't really stay to explain the dad's behavior, and well, it wasn't really our business anymore. She did say this was the first and last time the dad would ever escort the kid and thanked us for doing all we could. She was obviously upset and overwhelmed, but we're not a country where we share more than we have to, so it was not surprising that she just left after the thank you. I had to stay a while longer to write an incident report and got home absolutely exhausted. My appointment was canceled for being 5 minutes late? I guess I have to reschedule. This happened about 4 years ago when I got a summer job at my university. The job was working for professors that I had worked with before, so they asked me last minute to teach a summer workshop to 9th and 10th graders. So, with less than 2 weeks before the camp starts, I have a bunch of paperwork to do first, including clearances that say I can work with kids. One of these is an official FBI check for which they need fingerprints. Well, I needed to do the physical fingerprinting right away in order to get the results in time. Luckily, I was able to book a fingerprinting appointment for that Friday, booked 24 hours in advance as required, which would be just barely enough time to get the result. That Friday, I catch the subway to campus, and it's atrociously slow. I'll admit, I should have planned for this. The subway here is always behind. Anyway, I end up slightly late getting to campus, so I literally run to the police station and enter the front room at exactly 5 minutes after my appointment time. I know this because as I stepped through the door, I felt my phone buzz with what turned out to be a "Your appointment has been canceled" email. I speak to the security/cop behind bulletproof glass inside, and I learned the appointment was canceled after he checks my confirmation number. Apparently, they're automatically canceled if you're not checked in within 5 minutes. Obviously, this is outrageous, but I'm usually a patient guy. I ask if I can book a new appointment. That's no good since it would have to be Monday or later. So I grab a coffee from across the street and return to sit inside the police station to try and solve this with some Googling while I slip into a more and more frantic state of frustration. I can't find anywhere in the city that can fingerprint me before Monday. But here's what really pushed me over the edge. While I'm sitting there, at this point 30 minutes past my appointment time, someone else comes in for fingerprints. She shows up 5 minutes early. They take her in immediately, and she's out before her appointment was even scheduled to begin. The entire thing took her about 2 minutes. I point out to the cop behind the glass, as politely as I can, that clearly someone could see me right now because her appointment is already over. Why can't I have the current slot? But the cop insists that my appointment was canceled. My registration info was no longer in the system, and I can't be seen today. That's when the idea comes to me, and I confirm with him that showing up early is not a problem because they would have my appointment and registration info in the system. You see where I'm going with this? So I quietly sit back down and take out my phone. About 10 minutes later, I calmly approach him again and say, "Hello, I have a new appointment to be fingerprinted. I'm about 72 hours early." I have never seen such an exasperated sigh in my life, but he checked my new confirmation number and everything was in order. Within 10 minutes, I was walking back out after getting fingerprinted. Am I the jerk for not giving my dad my piece of lamb at dinner? My dad gets very territorial about food, like ridiculously so. I, 24, female, wasn't super hungry for dinner tonight, but my mom, 56, made lamb, spanakopita, and homemade tzatziki sauce. So I sat down and had a good amount and decided to save the rest of my portion of lamb to make a super yummy sandwich for lunch tomorrow. My dad, 59, plowed through his plate, whole piece of lamb, 4 spanakopita, and then half of my mom's lamb. Then he reached over the table and jabbed his fork onto my plate, grabbing my remaining half piece of lamb and asked, "Are you going to eat that?" 1. Ew, don't touch my food with your dirty fork. 2. Rude. I nodded and said, "I'm going to make a lamb sandwich for lunch tomorrow, since I'm already full." He glared at me so hard I shrunk in my seat. He yelled at me a lot when I was a kid, and I'm still working through that. He released the lamb and pouted like an angry toddler for the rest of the meal. My mom was still eating, and I stayed for conversation. I tried to continue conversation with my mom, but she went quiet on me too, and so I was very confused because it was just a piece of lamb. If he's going to give me the silent treatment over it, he can just have it. So I told him if he really wanted it, he could have it. I didn't see what the big deal was. He slammed his hand down on the table and mocked my voice. "I'm going to make a sandwich. I think you just have the power to say no to me, so you did." I was bewildered. I'd wanted a lamb sandwich, but it wasn't like I was purposefully trying to steal food away from him. I mean, I just relented and told him he could have it, and he's still throwing a tantrum. So I just excused myself from the table, and he blew up again.
There she goes, off to her room, because of a piece of lamb.
You're darn right I'm going to my room, because I didn't want to spend one more minute with that man. A few minutes later, I heard a knock on my door that was distinctly my father's. I didn't want to open, so we started banging on it. I opened it, trying to keep myself calm, and he just stood there, eating that piece of lamb. I asked him curtly what he wanted, and he just stood there glaring at me while ripping into it. I shut the door on him because he was freaking me out. I don't know what the heck just happened, but am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is her dad? Please let us know.
That man sounds like a monster, to be honest.
Overtime is no longer allowed? Okay. The players, fake names. We've got the owner, Jack, direct supervisor, Will, colleague, Paula, and myself. Backstory. I began working payroll at 16 years old. I'm incredibly good with numbers, as well as dealing with clients. Suffice it to say, I am wonderful at what I do. Many years ago, I began working with a very small payroll company with only 4 workers. I really liked the owner, Jack, and honestly still do. He is a decent dude. I also really liked the work and the clients. However, I was not fond of Paula or Will. Paula missed so much work, and I'm pretty sure no one has 5 grandfathers that passed within 3 years. She doesn't figure much into this story, other than to showcase that she was not a good employee. Will was the worst supervisor I had ever had. He took smoke breaks every 30 minutes. He always thought he was right. He was very hateful, and boy, he loved to talk. There were times where he was monologuing to a client who had hung up 30 minutes prior. No, I'm not exaggerating. However, he was the owner's father-in-law whose prior business went bankrupt. Basically, he was never going to be fired. In that work setting, I absolutely shined. I was the best employee by a huge margin. The malicious compliance. Will calls me into his office and lets me know that I'm getting too much overtime. This was a small business and I needed to be careful. Now, I never took much overtime. Overall, I usually had around 2 to 5 minutes by the end of the week, simply because I lived 5 minutes away and clocked in when I got in and settled, even if it was a minute early. I agreed to the new rule with a bit of glee. From then on, if I got in early, I would get ready to clock in and then play on my phone or read for 1 minute before clocking in. This drove Will absolutely crazy. After I did this for a few days, he called me back into his office. He told me about the good old days when people would work even without pay in order to excel at life. I politely reminded him that we were a payroll company, so he should be aware that it is illegal to not pay workers for time worked. From that point on, he would simply mutter under his breath and glare at me. The aftermath. After 3 to 4 weeks, the owner, Jack, calls me into his office. Apparently, Will had been complaining about me, about how I wasn't working hard and was being disrespectful. I explained the situation to him and pointed out that no clients had ever been unhappy with me, that I showed up to work every day on time, and that I had the most duties with the least problems. Basically, I reminded him I was his only good employee. Jack was a little shocked and annoyed that my tiny amount of overtime was the reason I was sitting in his office. He told me that if I needed it, I could have up to 30 minutes of overtime without needing it to be approved, and he also gave me a small raise for being such a hard worker. Finally, he told me that if Will ever gave me another rule that I disagreed with, I should go directly to him. Jack then called Will into his office, and I heard quite a bit of yelling. When Will came back out, he looked like he had just sucked a lemon. It's my fondest memory of Will. Am I the jerk for refusing to ground my daughter for taking the job her brother wanted? My son, 16, and my daughter, 18, both decided to get a job because our current financial situation isn't good. My son's been looking for some time. So far, he lost 2 jobs and couldn't complete 2 months working. I decided to help them, and I found a restaurant looking to hire waiters. I told my wife, and she said, "Perfect, this is the kind of job our son needs." I asked what about our daughter. She argued when I told her that I will be telling both kids to go and apply for the job. She said I was being unreasonable and shouldn't let our daughter know about this job opportunity. I ended up talking to both kids and told them to go see if they could get hired. The manager decided to test their skills for 2 days. Our son got rejected. It made him upset. 2 days after, our daughter came home and told us that she got hired. Both my wife and my son threw a fit, saying that the manager was being a jerk to hire just our daughter. I told her maybe our son wasn't focusing on work since he was already kicked out of his previous job. My wife went on about him having experience, unlike our daughter, that his sister must have done something because she stole the job he wanted. I told her to stop making excuses for him. She said our daughter should quit right away because whether she meant it or not, she took his job and he feels awful about it. I disagreed. That's when she had a talk with our daughter demanding she quit because the work environment there must be toxic and her brother was supposed to get the job and she took it. Our daughter refused after her mother insisted. My wife and I had an argument last night. She demanded that I ground my daughter for stealing her brother's job after she refused to quit, that it's the right thing to do or he'll resent her. I called her ridiculous and said that our son obviously wasn't qualified and his sister was more deserving. She called me unfair, that I'm playing favorites, that the kids will hate each other. I got fed up and I blew up, telling her to go find him a job instead of getting our daughter to quit hers and trying to ruin it for her instead of encouraging her to be independent and be happy for her. My wife isn't talking to either me nor our daughter. My daughter started asking if she did something wrong. Am I the jerk here? Well, what do you think? Should OP ground his daughter or not? Please let us know.
Something tells me the son takes after his mom.
She doesn't work there anymore, lady. We've got me and we've got HR, my wife's replacement. My wife used to be a corporate travel agent. She handled large companies like Microsoft, the software company, and Boeing, the airplane company. She had done this for over a decade and was really good at this. One day out of the blue, she's let go. Apparently, she was talking to someone on the phone and let out a sigh. The bigwig on the other end took this as a slight and asked that she be fired. My wife was the only person who handled these accounts for years, so there were no notes or guides on how to handle these clients. I noticed that day after day, she would get a call and be instructing the person on the other end of the call on how to do her job. I asked her what was up, and she said they keep asking for help because they don't know what to do. At the end of the week, I guess she put in at least 20 hours talking to her replacement, trying to help them out. Following week, Monday rolls around, and she gets another call. My wife was away from the phone, and I pick up. As I suspected, it was her old employer. I can be a nice guy, but this had been upsetting me. When they asked for my wife, and I confirmed that it was her old employer, the conversation pretty much went like this. Me: she doesn't work there anymore. HR: I just needed to ask her a few questions. Me: your company fired her for sighing. HR: I'm sorry about that. but we have a few questions. Me. She spent over half her week last week talking to you. She doesn't work there anymore. If you want her to train your staff, you will need to bring her in as a consultant. HR. Silence. Me. The hourly fee for her consulting will cost you $45 an hour. I'll be sending your company an invoice for the 20 hours she's already spent with you. After receipt of the $900 from your company, we can talk about further training. Any further communication will also be billed at $45 an hour. HR. Okay, thank you. Hangs up. I could have been nicer, but having worked many contract jobs in my past, I found that if you keep helping them after you're let go out of a sense of loyalty, they will keep using you at no cost. The best thing is that my wife wound up getting a job at that software company testing a travel agency app they were designing. She got a substantial raise as well. Edit. People have asked if I sent the invoice. I didn't. Just having them not call us gave us a sense of freedom and peace, worth way more than the $900. Am I the jerk for forcing my boyfriend to buy me a new blanket after he allowed a random dog he was sitting to use mine? I'm 28, female. I have a pet dander allergy. Nothing severe. I just break out in small, itchy, painful hives that usually only last like 24 hours max. But regardless, it's incredibly uncomfortable, and I'm a royal jerk in the event of flare-ups due to how uncomfortable it is. My boyfriend is fully aware of this because we've been together for 6 years, and when moving in with me, he had dog hair all over his belongings, which caused me to break out continuously for days. I went for an overnight business trip 2 days ago. He dropped me off at the airport, and where it was 3 a.m. in the morning, I brought along my blanket, leaving it in the front seat when we got there. I was aware that when I was gone, he was going to be dog-sitting his best friend's golden retriever. I made a point to tell him to bring a change of clothing so he could change prior to coming home because of the dog hair and me not wanting to have an episode. Well, he came to pick me up from the airport last night, and all I could smell was dog. Mind you, this is my vehicle. So I asked him why my car smelled like dog, and he said, "My car ran out of gas, so I had to use yours." I questioned it because he was going to their house and there was no need for the animal to be in my car. He claims the dog jumped into the car when he opened the door and he hadn't meant for it to happen. No big deal. But there was an outrageous amount of dog hair all over my blanket. Here's where I may be the jerk. So his buddy came over this morning and said to my boyfriend, "Tucker really needed that car ride yesterday. Thank you for bringing him with you." Turns out he took the dog for a hike using my car to transport. He immediately started trying to explain himself to me, saying he vacuumed the car afterwards and cleaned it as much as he could, etc. So I asked about my blanket. He tells me that the dog loved the blanket, and every time he took it away, the dog kept finding a way to grab it and lay down with it, so he just allowed it at that point. Prior to this, I was fine, thinking the dog just jumped in. After finding out he lied to my face, I told him to go buy me a new blanket. He said that wasn't necessary and that I could use his blanket. I told him that he caused this knowing I would break out, lied to my face, and that since he doesn't care about my allergy, then he can buy me a new one. He says I'm being unfair. Am I the jerk? ETA. Left out an important detail. Prior to asking him to purchase me a new blanket, I had asked him to bring my blanket to the laundromat, and he said he didn't have time. He has the next 4 days off, so that's a lie. I touched the blanket when getting in my vehicle and broke out almost immediately, and that's why I asked him to wash it instead of myself. When he said no, this is when I told him he had to buy me a new one, especially considering he washed his clothing after hanging out with the dog, but failed to wash a blanket that I use daily. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is her boyfriend? Please let us know.
We need to find out what he's allergic to so we can get some pro-revenge.
We don't need refills, but we're going to complain that we needed them 60 seconds after you asked. This happened almost 4 years ago, and even though I'm not a server anymore, it still annoys me occasionally when I think about it. So this was my first serving job ever. It was with a locally owned chain Mexican restaurant, more Americanized. I had retail experience, so I wasn't new to customer service or dealing with rude customers. This was during lunch hour. It was more of a slower day, so I only had 2 tables at any time, 4 customers total. This couple comes in and it's my turn in rotation, so I go over to greet them, take their drink orders, give them time to look at the menu, the usual. They seem very nice. I eventually bring their food out and then ask if they need any refills. They assure me that no, they're fine. I had just checked on my other table before them, had nothing else on my to-do list at the moment, so I step over by the drink/point of sale station, about 6 feet from the couple's table, important info, and just chill for a minute, all while casually glancing over at my tables to see if they need anything in the meantime. I kid you not. Literally 60 seconds later, I see the couple pulling another server over and talking to her, and they all glance over at me. I'm like, oh crap, what did I do? The server comes over to me and says, your table over there is complaining that they need drink refills while you're just standing over here doing nothing and completely ignoring them. I was literally in shock. 1, I had just been at their table 2 minutes prior and asked if they needed refills, which they said they didn't. 2, they never even tried to signal me or get my attention that they needed something, which I would have seen because I was 6 feet away and kept visual tabs on them for exactly that reason, even making eye contact and smiling. The other server ended up getting their drinks, and I went over to the table and tried to apologize, even though I knew I didn't do anything wrong, and they were just very short and pulled the, it's fine, even though it clearly wasn't. They weren't as friendly the rest of their time there, and I was expecting to get stiffed. They actually left an average tip, which left me even more confused in the end. If anything, I thought they would try to create some imaginary problem to get out of leaving a tip, but this wasn't the case. I still don't fully understand what happened that day. My Karen stepmom keeps taking my food. I teach her a valuable lesson. My stepmom is a nutritionist. She's always about eating the right foods, meal prep, fresh groceries, etc. Occasionally, my dad, 52, male, my siblings, 21, female, 20, male, and 23, male, and I like to get some junk food. We call these junk ups on the weekend. Now the problem is, since forever, my stepmom has 1, told us that we're going to die because we're eating fatty foods. I promise, we only eat junk food on the weekends or on special occasions. The last time I had anything unhealthy was my sister's birthday a few weeks ago. And 2, comes in while we're eating with a plate for herself and picks the food she wants from each of our plates. Whenever me or one of my siblings questioned this, she would tell us,
You're being disrespectful. Shut up. I can eat what I want.
or,
It would be a waste of time to buy me one because I don't want one.
I want to make it clear that she does not buy any of the food for our junk ups. Either I buy for everyone or one of my siblings does. Just yesterday, we decided to get burgers. This time, I bought food and one of my siblings said, you know what, get mom one too, because you know she'll just pick off of our plates anyways. And my dad grumbled something about her not liking that, but I didn't care. I figured she would come around to us buying her a burger too. Perhaps she felt excluded, which was definitely not our intention. When we got home and set our plates to eat, in came my stepmom with her own plate, and before she could start picking, I put the wrapped burger on her plate and said, here you go, that one's all yours. No need to pick on our plates now. She was infuriated with me and screamed at my dad to do something about me and went on and on about how I was being disrespectful towards her and that I needed to learn to share and that I'm too old to be selfish. I just sat there, unwrapped my burger, and ate. My siblings later told me that maybe we shouldn't have done that because now my stepmom has been stewing about it for some time now. Am I the jerk? Edit. I went to do my laundry and nap, and when I came back, I saw that my post blew up. Thank you for your advice and the Reddit silver. To clarify some points made in the comments, with burgers or something that you can't easily take a piece of, my stepmom would come in with a knife and fork and cut into it to get herself a slice. Also, I don't know if she has any mental illness. I've never asked. I think once she calms down, we can talk. When we talk, I will update everyone. Thanks again. Speaking of burgers, who makes the best burgers? Please let us know.
I'd do anything for some Wendy's right now.
Half-brother threatens to sue me over $16,000. It cost him $158,000 and possibly their parents' marriage. When I, 25, female, was 3, my grandparents passed. They set up a savings account in my name. The account was meant to be accessed by me when I was 21. At that point, it contained just over $300,000. My grandparents left me a letter saying they would like me to share the money fairly with any other Smith-Jones kids, meaning my full siblings. Dad's a Smith, mom's is a Jones. By fairly, they meant that they wanted me to assess the situation and judge for myself what was fair. I never had full siblings, but I have 2 half-brothers, Mac and Joe Smith, who are dad and stepmom's kids. Due to the specific wording my grandparents used, I legally never had to give Mac or Joe any money. However, I see Mac and Joe as my brothers, and as the money came from our grandparents, I felt that the fairest thing would be to assign each of us $100K, so we all got an equal-sized lump sum. And I figured that when Mac, the youngest, turned 21 and took his $100K, we could split any remaining money. When I turned 21, Dad suggested I buy a house with my $100K. I found a place I loved, but it was $130 and I couldn't get a mortgage. So Dad said I should borrow $30K from the account. I did, figuring I could pay it back before my brothers turned 21, and I have been repaying it. The account should be at $208K right now, but due to me withdrawing and then repaying that money, it's at $195K, so I still owe $13K. Joe turned 21 recently, and as I was giving him his $100K, Joe noticed that there was less in the account than there should be. I explained and said I was going to put it all back before Mac, now 19, turns 21. Joe told Mac, and both boys said I stole from them and owed them the full $13K back plus $3,000 of interest that they felt they would have gotten, and they wanted it all paid by this summer, which gave me less than 6 months to bring the account up to 211. I said I'd do it, but over 2 years as planned. The boys then wrote up a contract to that effect. I went to sign it until I saw that it said 6 months to pay it all back. I wouldn't sign as we agreed on 2 years. They said I should figure it out as they were entitled to that money and would be seeking legal advice. Later that day, I got an email, clearly written by them, saying that they intend to sue me for the $16,000, plus whatever is currently in the account, and additional damages and emotional distress on top of that. At this point in time, I'd given Joe about $50K out of his $100K because he wanted it in installments. I responded that legally, they were never entitled to any of it, and given their attitudes, I'd say they've already received an amount I deem fair, so that $50K was all they were getting. I then got a barrage of texts, calls, and emails yelling at me for going back on our deal. I blocked them. They then took to social media saying that I was trying to do them out of their inheritance and rallying our extended family into harassing me over this, and it mostly worked as a lot of people messaged me. However, I got a message from this guy called Chris Smith. Chris said he was 27 and claimed to be my half-brother. I had never met him before, but he sent me photos of him as a kid with our dad, grandparents, and me. He showed me that he also had an account with $150K in it and a scan of a letter from our grandparents saying this money was meant to be shared fairly among Dad's illegitimate kids. Chris also told me that we have another half-sibling who is 18. He's been looking for me for a while, but only found me when Dad shared Joe's post, which had me tagged. We checked with the solicitor to make sure, and as the boys are legitimate, they aren't entitled to anything in Chris's illegitimate kid fund. And as they are my half-siblings, they aren't entitled to anything in my Smith-Jones Kids Fund either. I sent the boys a letter formally telling them to back off, stop posting about me online, and enjoy the $50K because it's all they're getting. The day they received the letter, Chris got a PM from Dad asking if the boys can have some of Chris's fund. Chris also said no and told Dad we had met. I told Mac and Joe about Chris and our other half-sibling with Chris's permission. So it looks like my grandparents, knowing about Chris before they passed, set up 2 funds. One for the kids Dad had with my mother, who was still his wife when they passed, and one for kids born out of Dad's affairs, presumably to make sure no one tried to do anyone else out of hurt feelings. I'm getting a lot of crap, but holding firm on my decision. The boys have realized that I won't back down on this, and it sounds like I've caused a schism at their house, as Joe has all the money and no intention of sharing, so Mac is now feeling twice as done over. Plus, stepmom apparently did not know about the other half-siblings, or that my half-sister was born after she and my dad got married, and she's made Dad move into a hotel. It sounds like Dad is looking for a long-term living arrangement outside of the family home, because it looks like she's not letting him move back in. Dad is begging me to reconsider, but honestly, I'm done with all of them except Chris and my sister. Entitled Dad walks out on kid during visitation because his job is more important to him. So this happened when I was recently divorced from my first husband, and I only had my older son. My ex didn't want overnight custody because he worked 7 days a week, often 12 to 16 hours per day, but he had open visitation on weekends where as long as he gave me 2-hour notice, he could come out and take our son for 4 to 6 hours. At the time of this story, our son was 4. So generally, my ex would come out on Sunday because that was his quietest day at work and the day he was least likely to get called into work. He was the lead network admin with a major local manufacturer at the time. He'd show up around lunch and take our son into the mall, and they would go to Borders and pick out a book or a toy, and then go to McDonald's and eat and go in the play area for a bit. The first time this happened was at McDonald's. My ex lives about 60 miles from me, and the McDonald's is about 20 miles from my house, 40 miles from his, and close to 80 miles from where he works. He has a crazy long commute. They were in the play area, and he got a call that there was an emergency at work and he needed to come in right away. Rather than bringing our son home and then going into work, He called me up and told me he had to go to work immediately and for me to come and pick up our son. I thought he meant he would wait there until I arrived, but no. When I got there, he was long gone and our son was still in the play area all by himself. Anyone could have figured out he was alone and grabbed him or called the cops. I was absolutely furious at my ex, but hey, that's why he's my ex, right? So after this incident happened, I took him back to family court and petitioned for him to have supervised visitation only. It was granted, but lucky me, the court decided that since my ex and I were still on good terms, I had to be the supervisor. This isn't uncommon in my state. And I didn't want to be one of those jerky ex-wives that won't let the father see the kids, so I agreed to it for my son's sake. So he would pick both of us up and take us to Borders and out to eat, just like he had done when it was just him and our son. And then the same thing happened again. We were all at Borders, and my ex was wandering through the store while my son and I were in the kids section. We had arranged a time to meet and leave, and I went looking for him and couldn't find him anywhere. I thought he was probably in the restroom or something, so I called his cell phone, only to find out he had been called into work again and left without even telling us he was leaving. I had to call my parents 40 miles away to come and get us and take us home. I thought my dad was going to hurt my ex when he found out what he had done. Heck, I wanted to myself. I went off on my ex big time and told him I wasn't going to put up with it anymore, and if he wanted to see our son, he'd just have to come to our house and stay there with him for a few hours every weekend. The court backed me up on this one, and the judge laid into him over taking off on us again. Especially when it came out in court that half the time my ex had had my son, he had just dumped him with my ex-in-laws and gone to work, so he wasn't even the one with him during visitation. And my son told me that my ex-mother-in-law was being horrible and refusing to feed him while he was at her house. That was pretty much the end of visitation. I'm since remarried, I have a younger son with my second husband, and my ex hasn't shown his face since 2010, of his own choice. He's now remarried, and they have a 7-year-old son that my son hasn't even met. His new wife doesn't want him to have anything to do with our son, so as far as he's concerned, the heck with us. And as far as I'm concerned, we're better off without him. Poetic justice, though, is that since our son is on the spectrum, my ex has to pay child support on him until he's 24, which is the longest it can go in my state. And considering he makes high 6 figures now, it's a hefty sum of money I'm sure the second wife isn't happy about losing. You're invited to a pity party for all the guests who file fake complaints to corporate. Our corporate overlords require that we have a splash page that guests have to use a password to sign on to after connecting to the network. For whatever reason, this splash page just doesn't want to load on some devices, so I'm fairly used to tech-befuddled guests needing assistance getting onto the network, and I'm always more than happy to have them come to the desk so I can do it for them. One guy had called the desk complaining that he could not get onto the Wi-Fi network at all and was very frustrated because he has important work he needs to get done for his job. Like usual, I tell him I'd be happy to get it all set up for him if he'd like to bring his device to the desk. He comes down with an ancient brick of a laptop that has blue screened with a message along the lines of, "Something has gone wrong and your computer needs to restart." I try to restart it and it just literally will not boot, giving only some sort of runtime error message. Going well and beyond any duties I am obligated to perform, I did some basic troubleshooting and was at the very least trying to get the thing to boot for the guy. Probably spent at least half an hour working with it because it was slow and not much else was going on. Alas, no war was won with that old beast and it just wasn't getting anywhere productive. The guy looked frustrated but thanked me and went back to his room. No less than an hour later, I receive a customer service complaint through corporate. It's from the guest, and the complaint detailed that the hotel advertises having free Wi-Fi, but it has no internet connection at all available to guests. The front desk staff is incompetent and unhelpful and didn't care at all when he told them he needed internet connection for important work. He expects to be fully compensated for this stay, and they need better qualified staff. Oh heck no. It takes quite a lot to get me fired up after so many years in this business, but that right there made me furious. I immediately contact our customer service department and explain what actually had happened, and they advised me to try and work with the guest directly for a resolution, which at that point, I was all too happy to confront him directly about it. Because clearly the man didn't realize that when he files a complaint like that, it comes right back to us, and I just happened to be the sole person in charge of handling our customer service complaints. I called the guest's room and referenced the just made complaint and asked him how he would like me to better try and help him resolve his issue, assuring him that we very much do have proper internet connection here for all of our guests. The guy backpedaled so hard there could have been smoke. Straight out denied that he had made any kind of complaint and there was no problem. Everything was fine. Must have been some kind of misunderstanding. Of course. I call our GM hotline back and explain that the guest had denied making the complaint entirely, to which they then informed me that he had called back and said it was a misunderstanding and that the case had been closed. Nice try, guy with your busted up laptop that had to have been at least 8 years old. Have you ever had a fake complaint filed against you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I used to file those all the time until I went to that Karen's retreat.
Am I the jerk for making my boyfriend pay half the rent? I'm 27, female, and make about $130K, 30K of that being from a side hustle. My boyfriend of 2.5 years is 28, male, and makes $80K, no side hustle. I'm really serious about saving and only spend about $2,500 a month, $1,600 of that being in rent. Occasionally, I do something expensive and fun, like a week-long cruise I went on with friends before lockdown, but I don't eat out more than once a month. I buy clothes maybe once every other year, and my car is almost old enough to vote. My boyfriend is different. He does have an emergency fund and saves 10% of his salary in his company 401k and gets a 4% employer match. But that's it. Everything that comes in goes out. He eats out every day, leases an expensive car, and is always buying things. I don't know where his money goes, and to be honest, I don't think he does either. I don't love his spending habits, but I'm okay with it. Saving 10% is more than a lot of people do, and he doesn't have any credit card debt, so whatever. The issue is that he's supposed to be moving into my apartment next month. He currently lives in a house with 3 other guys and pays $800 a month. If we split the rent on my apartment, he would still pay $800 a month. I think that's more than fair, but he wants to pay $600 and me pay $1,000. His argument is that I make a lot more money than him and expenses should be proportional. And he also says it's not fair that my rent is going to decrease by 50% and his is going to stay the same. I don't agree, because I don't think what rent we paid before we lived together really has anything to do with the fairness of the arrangement, and he can clearly afford $800 a month since he's already been paying it. I would feel differently if he really would struggle to pay half the rent, but it's 12% of his salary. Come on. My flat salary is also only $20K more than his. The reason I make so much more is because I sometimes work nights and weekends. He could make extra money doing that too, but chooses not to. I don't really see why I should be punished for it. I told him I would be willing to compensate with a 700-900 split on the condition that he took the $100 he was saving and put it aside into a fund for us to buy a house one day, and that money would be his to do whatever he wanted if we ended up breaking up. He got mad and said I was treating him like a kid, that his finances are none of my business, and it's totally inappropriate for me to tell him what to do with his money. I feel like I can't see this situation clearly. Am I the jerk? Update. I told my boyfriend we needed to talk and went over to his house. I wrote down some of the more salient pieces of advice I had gotten here and basically just told him that I felt like him wanting me to contribute more to rent while also saying his finances were none of my business suggested he has a real what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine attitude, and that it makes me uncomfortable. I said that it wasn't really just about an additional $200 a month, it was about how he just mindlessly spent all his money, and it seemed like his emergency plan was to just rely on me for everything. I brought up how he couldn't even afford his dog's surgery and I had to pay, and that should have been a wake-up call, but it wasn't. We got into an argument where he basically said he works hard and has a good job, so he deserves nice things and to be able to go out whenever he wants. It made my heart sink to hear him say that, because I feel the exact opposite, that when you work hard and have a good job, the thing you deserve is financial security. I knew I wasn't going to change his entire outlook on money, so I just tried to focus on more concrete things. I said that if he lost his job, I would be able to support him while he looked for something else, but he didn't offer me the same security, and that if we eventually wanted to buy a house, I'd be forced to pay the entire down payment myself, and that he wouldn't even be able to contribute much monthly since he'd continue to blow a bunch of money on stuff he doesn't need or really even want. I said that dating him felt more like having a liability than a partner, and that him wanting me to pay an extra $200 a month in rent so he'd have more spending money is what really made me realize how unhappy I am with our situation. We argued some more. I could tell he saw my point of view, but was also understandably feeling pretty defensive. I eventually just told him that I wasn't comfortable with him moving in right now, and if he wanted to keep dating me, then we were going to have a frank talk about finances. He doesn't have to live the way I do, but he does have to meet me in the middle. I said I wanted to see him saving $500 a month and for him to only eat out 3 times a week, and that I'd work with him on creating a budget that worked for him. He's never budgeted before. I said I understand if he didn't want to compromise with me on this, but it's a deal breaker for me, and I need someone who's going to be more responsible with their spending. He said he'd think about it, and I left. Feeling kind of drained by this whole thing, and I've made peace with the fact that this relationship might be ending. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
Financial disagreements are one of the leading causes of divorce. Good thing Reddit boy and I agree to eat ramen every day. Ramen.
Am I the jerk for asking my girlfriend to throw out her ex's things? I, 30 male, have been in a relationship with my girlfriend, 29 female, for 18 months. Things are starting to get serious where we have discussed the possibility of me moving into her house. Prior to me, she was in a serious relationship for 9 years with her high school sweetheart. Together, they had 4 kids, now aged 10, 8-year-old twins, and a 5-year-old. Sadly, their dad passed 3 years ago. Now, I've met her kids. I've stayed the night at their home. She's asked me to watch them here and there so she could run errands or do her weekly hourly driving lesson prior to the UK's 3rd lockdown. Her kids are great. We go on family day outs together, and I feel that they have accepted me, and I'm growing to love them a lot. However, there is something that I find very uncomfortable. She still has a lot of her ex's things laying around. She has a framed poster of his favorite football team hanging on her bedroom wall, and she hates football. She has pictures of him and her and their kids hanging on her walls in her hallways and her lounge. She has his t-shirts folded in a box in her wardrobe. The other day, I found a half-empty bottle of men's shower gel at the back of her bathroom cupboard, and it isn't a brand I like to use. When I asked my girlfriend why she still had all of his stuff in the house, she got a bit defensive. She stated that having the pictures hanging up reminds her kids and her of their times together before they lost him. Having his clothes in a box is purely so the kids can smell his scent if they miss their dad and they can hug his shirt instead. I told her it made me very uncomfortable having all these little reminders of a dead man in my face, and if I were to move in with her, then I would need all of that stuff gone. She got upset, started crying, and said that she couldn't just erase those parts of her life, and the home she has with her kids was her home with him. But here's where I may be the jerk. I got a bit irritated with her and said that I don't feel like she's willing to compromise and consider my feelings, that I felt like she was comparing me to a ghost and that she might not truly love me by not considering it. She hasn't spoken to me properly in 3 days. So, am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Dumb neighborhood kids didn't listen and blamed us for what happened. So my family and I got a new Labrador puppy in March after my other dog passed away. So my dog is very playful, runs around, and when he meets new people, he gets very excited since he is only half a year old and still basically a puppy. So today, my family and I were getting ready to visit our cousins when we heard some kids laughing. We looked out the window and saw a couple of kids, maybe 6 to 8 years old, petting our dog through the fence. It was no problem since my dog was inside our yard. We have the gate locked so he doesn't get out on the road and possibly get hit by a car, but the key is always in the gate door so anyone can just unlock it and come in. We told them just to not open the gate so he doesn't get out onto the road. They left and we continued getting ready. When we came back from our cousins, my grandma told us that those girls had come back, opened the gate, and obviously started running as they didn't know how to deal with a very playful and excited dog. One of the girls ran onto the road and my dog followed her onto that road, a road which has at least 5 cars passing by every minute. My grandma immediately reacted and told the girls to get out of the road and into the yard so my dog would follow her. She did just that and everything was fine. And then the next thing they did was just run away like nothing happened. No apology, no nothing. The next day they were passing by our house and saw my dad and started complaining to him that the dog bit her on her hand, and when my dad asked where the mark was, she said it had already healed. 1 day of time, and blamed us for the incident, and their mom apparently wanted to call the police, but in the end she didn't. Now here is why this was a horrible situation. A. They trespassed onto our land. B. They opened our gate that was locked for a reason, even after we told them not to. C. They ran onto a busy road, so either the girl or my dog could have gotten hurt. As much as I wouldn't care if one of those idiots got hurt, my family would be charged because our dog chased them. Wasn't even attacking, just wanted to play. D. They wanted to get us in trouble for their dumb actions. So yeah, they learned it the hard way. I don't know if this story even fits this subreddit, but I just had to write down how angry I am. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my half-brother use the land I inherited as a venue for his wedding? I, male 36, got married in 2017. My wife and I are not rich. We couldn't afford a fancy wedding. My dad hosted my wedding at his house. Mom and dad got divorced. I lived with my stepdad and half-brother for years. We didn't invite a lot of people. Again, we couldn't afford a huge menu and more chairs and tables. My mom insisted that I invite my stepdad and half-brother, and we did. Everyone was happy and excited for us except my stepdad and half-brother. My half-brother openly made comments about the tables and chairs and made fun of my cheap suit and wife's wedding dress, complained that the food was ordered from a crappy restaurant, while his dad was laughing out loud from behind. My in-laws were literally staring as he basically called my wedding a joke, not to mention trash-talking my dad and saying that he was living in filth and the backyard was in fact a dumpster. I was so mad. My wife looked so upset and we both were so embarrassed because he and his dad were laughing and being rude. My mom did nothing. I tried to be civil, but at that point the wedding was already ruined. I cut contact with both after they made my wedding a crap show. Mom said I overreacted and defended them, saying that they were probably drunk. My dad was hurt as they openly offended him in his house. Unfortunately, my dad passed 1 year later. It was a lot for me to take. Neither my stepdad nor half-brother showed up to the funeral, and I don't know why I'm not surprised. I inherited a piece of land from my dad that I put money on and made it a nice place for family get-togethers. Dad's family, to be specific. My half-brother is getting married soon. My mom showed him pictures of my land, and he suggested using it as a venue for his wedding. My mom called and told me to visit. I went to see her, and I saw my half-brother there along with stepdad. I was already leaving when he asked me to use the land I inherited from my dad as a venue for his wedding. He went on about what decorations he was going to use. He said his fiancée saw the pictures and liked it a lot. I told them no. My mom told me to stop being rude and sit down and talk like an adult. I told them no. I won't be letting him use my property after what he did. My mom defended him, saying he didn't mean it and was just messing around. He ruined a once-in-a-lifetime event for me and didn't care. I still refused. I got into an argument with them and I left after I was called bitter. My mom never stopped texting me, telling me to help out my brother. She shamed me and called me selfish. She's now reaching out to my wife, telling her to convince me to agree. I was surprised his aunts are wanting to talk to me about it as well. What do you think? Should OP let his stepbrother use his land or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for overruling my husband's veto and inviting my mom to stay with us for 3 weeks after our baby is born? I'm currently 6 months pregnant with my first baby. My husband and I have been married for 3 years and have a happy marriage overall. With our baby coming in about 3.5 months, we're both nervous and excited as any new parents would be. We're reading books, watching YouTube videos, just trying to get an idea of what to do, because the most experience we have is holding and playing with babies for about 10 minutes at a time and then handing them back to their parents when they cry. The part I'm most nervous about is how awful the first month or so is going to be. My doctor says that I'm likely going to be scheduled C-section because of some health issues. I can't even begin to imagine how rough it's going to be. Recovering from a major surgery, recovering from labor and delivery, sleepless nights with a crying newborn, changing diapers, feeding, pumping, hormones all over the place, etc. All for the very first time. I get awful headaches when I get less than 6 hours of sleep. I can't even imagine how bad it'll be in the first month. After the doctor told me that I'm likely to be a scheduled C-section, I told my husband we absolutely need outside help at first. My husband was sort of against this idea. He said he would take on the bulk of the work. I know my husband. He's very responsible and follows through on his word, but he doesn't know babies. Neither do I. It's not like this is our third kid and we know what we're doing. We don't. I called my mom, who lives 2 hours away, and gave her the general updates. I told her I needed help. For reference, my mom is the nicest person on the planet. Yes, my husband and my mom get along well and loves being a mom and grandma. She proposed this. Yes, I can come out. Here's what I think would be best. You and your husband watch the baby in the daytime. You focused on feeding, pumping, and recovering from surgery. Your husband can focus on keeping the house in order and changing diapers, putting the baby to sleep, etc. And then I'll do the nighttime duty. I'll slowly switch my sleep schedule so I can be awake at night. And hopefully if you're pumping enough, I can just feed the baby at night. So at least you both will get a full night of sleep. This was heaven sent to me. I told her I needed to talk to husband, but 99% yes, and oh my god, thank you so much, I love you, mom. Fast forward to today. It's been a week of back and forth on this. We've had rational discussions. We've yelled. We've tried everything, but neither will budge. My husband insists that having a third adult is suffocating And trust me, I'll take care of the baby for everything besides feeding. That's all you gotta do. But I feel like he's being really naive and I'll have to deal with the fallout. So yesterday, I said forget it and told my mom yes. Obviously, this led to a fight with my husband who's upset because he clearly said no, but I went through with it anyways. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her husband? Please let us know.
Remember the time my mom stayed with us for 3 weeks?
Yes, Karen. Unfortunately, I do. Karen mother attempts to control my social life after I move out. I laugh in her face. I, 20, female, moved out on my 18th birthday and never looked back. I mostly moved out due to how strict my parents were. When I say strict, I don't mean something like home by 10 p.m. I mean, I wasn't allowed to have friends older than me, even by a few months. I wasn't allowed any guy friends. If I had a project to work on at school and got partnered with a guy, my mom would tell my teachers to make me do it alone. I was only allowed on my phone if someone, mom or dad, was there to monitor what I was doing. Weekdays, my bedtime was 9 p.m. and weekends 9:30 p.m. I could only have sleepovers if it was at my house, and all of my friends had to be questioned to make sure they were clean, meaning they didn't have boyfriends, no tattoos, went to church, you get it. So you can imagine, I had literally 1 or 2 friends. By 18, I didn't have any plans. I just packed my stuff and left. My parents weren't happy and tried for months to get me to come back home, but I didn't plan on it. Anyways, I landed a darn good job and was able to get my first apartment shortly after. My friend is over at my house almost every day with her boyfriend, and we just hang out. I didn't cut out all contact with my parents, but I limit it to only special occasions. My mom wanted to have a Zoom family call, whatever it's called, and asked me to join. I figured, what the heck, I'll join and say hi. As I'm talking to my little cousin, in the background you could see my friend's boyfriend come into the living room area. Everyone's face kind of froze, and I didn't think much of it. My mom asked who it was, and I told her, and she immediately gets annoyed. She starts asking why he was leaving my bedroom, which he didn't. The bathroom is the same way towards the bedroom, so I could see why it would look like he left from my room. She and my dad proceed to ask me why I have guys at my home. Why is he 21 hanging around me? I just turned 20, but yeah, it was like I was 15 again. My mom then insists I make him leave. At this point, my friend and her boyfriend hear this and go, "What the heck?" I didn't know what else to do but laugh. I said, "Are you out of your mind?" and laughed some more. I realized they were serious and said my goodbyes and hung up. Later, I started getting messages that my parents are upset I laughed at them, and my family says it's in my best interest to apologize because I was being a jerk for laughing. Am I the jerk for laughing? For those of you asking why I would think I was the jerk, it's mostly because I laughed at them, then hung up, so I thought it was rude and jerkish, especially after being told I was by my aunt as well. I've seen a lot of people telling me to go no contact. I'd feel terrible if I did such a thing, but someone did point out that they'll never change their ways, so I think I might have to. You know, I've got no idea how to set boundaries, but I'm sure there's a few articles that can help me with that. I did block them from all my social media accounts except Facebook, so I think that counts. I'm not familiar with setting boundaries. Sorry. I found out from my little cousin that my mom has been asking where I live, so now I'm kind of scared for that. Though not many know my address, if she asks the right people, she might find out. I hope not. Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk for laughing in her parents' face or not? Please let us know.
And parents wonder why their kids want to have nothing to do with them.
Trust me, I don't know where your rental is. I'm just enjoying my coffee. While my husband collects I don't work here lady incidents like a politician collecting bribes, I only have 3 of my own. This is one of them. This happened in the spring of 2018. My mother had traveled abroad to visit one of her relatives, so when she was flying back, I went to get her. We live about 3 hours away from the airport. Because our oldest was recovering from a stomach bug, hubby decided to stay home with the kids and I would get my mother and bring her home. My mother's flight was scheduled to arrive at 13:15, but when I got there, I found out they had a 2-hour delay and I had to wait. I thought, alright, I'll enjoy a coffee while I wait, and notified my husband. The weather was good, low 20s Celsius, with no clouds, and decided to have my coffee on the outside patio of a coffee shop. I grabbed my tablet and, because the airport is a bit windy, a yellow windbreaker. And apparently, that was the problem. I was reading my book on my tablet, enjoying my coffee, wearing my yellow windbreaker, when I heard a,
"Hey, You.
I didn't think it was directed at me and continued reading. Then I feel someone looming above me and
I'm talking to you.
I looked up to see a man looking down at me. The following exchange had happened. Cast, we've got me. We've got Chad, the entitled jerk. We've got Karen, entitled jerk's wife. We've got police officers 1 and 2. Me. Yes? Chad.
Where's my rental?
Thinking that he was asking where the rental companies had desks, I replied that we were on the other side of a rival's area. Chad.
Okay, be a good employee and bring it here.
Me. I will certainly not do that. I don't work for the rentals.
Yes, you do. Now go and get it.
Me.
No.
The thing goes back and forth like we are 4-year-olds when Karen inserts herself in the conversation. Karen.
Honey, what's taking so long?
Chad to Karen.
This employee here doesn't want to bring us our rental.
Karen comes and grabs my windbreaker's lapel and puts her face uncomfortably close to mine. Karen.
Listen, you little jerk. Me and my husband are very good clients. I don't care if you're on your break, but if you don't bring the car in 3 minutes, we will get you fired.
Me, extremely upset at this point. Listen, jerk, take your paws off me, or we will have trouble. Karen.
Oh, you threaten me? Me? Oh, you are so getting fired.
At that point, she swings her arm, hitting the coffee, spilling it on the table, missing the tablet, and on me. Me, standing up.
Buzz off, jerk! Go find your own rental.
Karen, at that point, slapped me, while her husband was screaming at me. I flipped and slapped her back, which initiated a fight. When the initial argument began, a couple of bystanders had taken notice. The shouting had attracted a crowd, and when the fight started, somebody called the cops. 2 officers came and separated us. Officer 1. What happened? Chad.
The employee refused to help us and then attacked my wife.
Me. I don't work here, you jerk. And your wife attacked me. Officer 2. Madam, language please. Karen.
I want to press charges.
Officer 1. Okay, all of you are coming with us. We ended up in the airport police station. One officer went to get the manager of the rental company, and the other reviewed the tapes with his boss. The rental company manager verified I wasn't an employee. They wear white shirts and black ties and a lanyard with their access ID. I was wearing a Cthulhu t-shirt and jeans. The cameras verified the attack. I pressed charges and left to get my mother. Want me to BS a review to get more business? Have fun losing money. Several years have passed since this incident, and the people involved have either forgotten about this or don't lurk around this subreddit. Either way, names have been changed for privacy reasons. Background. I was working as a contractor for a big firm where clients go for specific services, and then we were assigned to that company on a subcontractor basis. The firm charges the clients an arm, a leg, and a kidney or 2, while paying us a tiny percentage of the sales. Business is business, and I can't complain about that. When it's time to renew the contract with the client, every 3 months, we are supposed to write a review about what's going on and what should be done in the next term. Now for the story. I worked on that project for 2 months, and I had a very good relationship with the employees and their CEO, and everything was peachy until my company wanted the client to pay double for additional services and wanted me to write a bogus review stating that their current situation was absolute crap and they should go for the new and improved plan. Moreover, I was supposed to do it by 7 p.m., 1.5 hours away, and it was my day off. I was in the middle of a trip with friends and I said, "No can do," and hung up. It was Friday. I didn't check my emails until Monday morning. Guess who woke up to 17 emails from the company and 2 from my client? I checked the client's email first, and the CEO had personally emailed me asking what was going on and why was my company pressuring them to sign a new contract when the old one was still active. I didn't say anything and told him that I'll check it out and get back to him. Not a minute passed before I got a call from my team leader. Team leader.
Why didn't you write the report on Friday?
Me. On my day off? Team leader.
You should be available whenever we want you to do something.
Me. What if I was sick or in the hospital? What would you have done then?
But you were not, and we expect you to do as we say, because you are bound by employee rulebook.
Me. As you may know, I'm not one of your employees, but a contractor. We have specific dates and times we work, And you can't just call me on a day off and ask me to work out of the blue. That would be against my contract with your company. By the way, since the client's current contract is still active for a month, the review has to be written after the contract ends, not before. It's even written in the contract you signed off.
I don't care about semantics. Write a review by the end of the day.
Me, I'm not going to BS the review.
You have to do as we say, or else you're fired.
Malicious compliance time. He said I had to write the BS review, but didn't mention anything about the real review. So I wrote the real review, and under that I wrote, "The review Mr. Blank asked me to write," and wrote the BS review. Send it to the client and CC the TL, all the other contractors, the executives, and anyone who had the faintest idea about the project. I wish I was there to see their faces when they received the email. Best part? They tried to fire me, but couldn't due to the terms of the contract. So I had no work, but full pay for 4 months. My PC was locked, so I went to the office every day, brushed up my resume, and started sending emails all day while having free coffee and tea. The client I was working for hired me the next week as a freelance consultant. So I was getting double the income, though for 4 months, and stopped going to the company altogether. The CEO was a powerful guy, and he immediately sent an email to all the businesses he knew, and no one renewed their contract, resulting a net loss of a couple million a year per company. I heard 1 or 2 companies took them to court for falsifying reports, but not sure what happened to them. Have you ever had a boss try to get you to do something you knew you shouldn't be doing? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I'd have to speak to their manager.
Am I the jerk for telling my coworker to mind her own business, or I will report her to HR? I, 27 female, have been obese for majority of my life. My highest weight was 92 kilograms, and I am 164 centimeters. My parents tried to instill good habits in my childhood, but I got addicted to junk food in my teenage years. It was a big struggle to lose weight since. Last year, I finally managed to get my eating habits under control. I eat 1 meal a day, OMAD, but it is a big meal that is satisfying and balanced. Usually I have rice with a side of vegetables, eggs, and 1 type of meat. Sometimes, if I feel like it, I will also have an avocado shake or some fruits. I fast for the rest of the day. There are other reasons why I follow this diet. I have terrible acid reflux that makes me nauseous if I eat anything in the morning and at night. Keeping my meals to the afternoon period, 1 to 4 p.m., has helped me to control this. Before this, the nausea would get so bad, I would have to get off the bus to throw up on the way to work. Haven't had this issue since I started this diet. I reached my goal weight and have been maintaining this diet since. For some reason, my diet immensely bothers my coworker, Rachel. She always has something to say about my food. Some of the things she said.
It looks boring. Doesn't it get boring to eat the same thing every day? I feel sad looking at your diet. A donut isn't going to hurt your weight loss, etc.
We only worked in office until April 2020 before lockdown started. After April, we were working from home, so I didn't have to deal with her comments anymore. We have not stepped foot into the office until this year in January. Many of my coworkers were shocked at my transformation. Rachel has started her nonsense comments again, saying my diet is unhealthy, restrictive, and that I am too thin. I've told her multiple times to stop commenting on my food and body as it's not appropriate, but it seems like she cannot stop herself from saying something. I've even changed my lunch hours so that I don't have to eat lunch around her. Yesterday I snapped as she was purposely talking very loud about me to another coworker, talking about how I have disordered eating and I'm too thin. It seems as if she wanted me and the rest of the office to hear. I walked over and said very loudly that she needs to mind her own business and that if she doesn't stop with her comments on my weight or diet, then I will go straight to HR. Her face changed and you could hear a pin drop in the office. Majority of my coworkers support me. However, there are 2 other people that have come forward saying they think I am too thin, and they were concerned and that I was too harsh on Rachel. I told them that I will also report them to HR if they don't mind their own business. For the record, my weight is in the healthy BMI range. I haven't heard a thing from Rachel today. When I told my mom, she thinks I massively overreacted and that they are still getting used to the thinner me. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is Rachel? Please let us know.
I'll never understand people like Rachel. If you don't have anything nice to say, just keep your mouth shut.
Celebrity, unpaid tab, and revenge. This took place a few years ago. I just recently remembered it. I worked at a restaurant with 2 floors, 2 bars, and 3 dining rooms. Upstairs has a ski lodge feel with a large bar, enough TVs to show every game on that day, and a bunch of tables. Downstairs is a small bar, sits 6 to 8, mostly used for service drinks and takeout. About 15 tables in that room and 3 TVs. The other dining room downstairs has no TVs and is preferred by our older customers. Now that we have set the stage, let's get to the story. I believe it was a Wednesday night, not normally super busy or super slow. But this Wednesday we had a big event for a YouTuber who was getting his own show. I'm going to leave him nameless, but some of you might figure out who he is. The event was for the showing of his first episode on TV. We advertised the event and got a great turnout. The whole place is packed. We put a projector in the dining room without TVs. The YouTube star, in my opinion, is annoying, and so are most of his followers who came in. But they're spending money and the building is full on a weekday, so who am I to complain? I was bartending at the smaller bar downstairs with another girl. We took a small section of tables while serving the people at the bar and making drinks for the whole downstairs. Not a big deal, but it got hectic. One of the tables is 2 guys. They were the equivalent of young male Karens. They didn't make a reservation and were upset the upstairs was full. I got them a table in the downstairs bar room near a TV and told them a lot of people were planning to go upstairs for the viewing and they were more than welcome to do that. They eat and drink and I think everything is going great. The star of the night comes downstairs, says hi to tables and takes selfies. I see this table posting their selfie on Instagram. Once the show starts, these guys and many others head upstairs to watch. It's a 30-minute show full of pranks, and if I remember correctly, the guy dresses like an old man often. Now, we should have held credit cards, and I take full responsibility for not, but it just wasn't something we did at the downstairs bar, as most customers don't wander around the building. The show ends, people come back to their tables, either close out or enjoy another drink. The downstairs starts winding down, and this table is nowhere to be found. I head upstairs to look for them, and they're not there. Hoping they're outside smoking or we just didn't see them, the other bartender and I go about cleaning up and serving the remaining customers. End of the night comes, and they clearly left without paying. Save your lawyer talk. I know it's illegal for the restaurant to make us pay, but they would have. I made way too good of money there to get fired over having to pay 1 check. But then I remember this table posting on Instagram. I decided it was worth a shot and looked through hashtags of the YouTube star's catchphrase. Lo and behold, I find it. Being a petty jerk, I use the YouTuber's catchphrase and comment on the picture. Would you look at that? You skipped out on your tab and I found you. Please call the restaurant and pay your tab. Not even 5 minutes later, this guy calls the restaurant and pays his tab. Some excuse that he bought and paid for his drinks upstairs and thought that was his tab. I understand that not everyone knows how restaurants work, but how could you think a tab for 2 drinks is the same as the one with food and more drinks on it? He paid his tab over the phone. While the tip was low, I was happy to get the tab paid, get some revenge, and feel like a detective. Am I the jerk for not letting my cousin borrow my favorite book? I, 20 male, am a big reader and have a pretty big collection of books. Normally, I have no problem letting friends and family members borrow my books. My sister and I are constantly swapping books back and forth. The other day, my cousin Chris, 12 male, fake name, was over and he brought up that he wanted to read Ready Player One. He just saw the movie and wanted to compare. In hindsight, I really wish I kept my mouth shut, but I got excited and started going off about how it's probably my favorite book of all time. My aunt suggested that he just borrows my copy of the book. Normally this wouldn't be an issue. I've lent him plenty of books before. However, I don't always get them back. I usually have to remind them multiple times to please return my books when they're done with them, or just go over to their place and get them myself. I don't mind too much because I have a lot of books and I know that I'll get them back eventually. Now, if I had just any copy of Ready Player One, sure, he could borrow it, no problem. But my specific copy means a bit more to me. I went to a private high school. Grad class was just under 30 kids. And when we graduated, the teachers found a book that they thought each student would like. And then they all signed it. So as you can probably guess, they got me Ready Player One. And it has all of my teachers' signatures and little messages on the inside. The reason that this means so much to me is that I went through a really bad depression in high school. And most of my teachers were always there to talk to and help me. So to this day, whenever I start feeling down, I read all the messages they left me in that book and remember all the good memories I had there. So after I politely told my aunt and cousin that I didn't want them to take my copy, it turned into a lot of,
Come on, it's just a book. You know we'll give it back. He's not gonna do anything bad to it.
I should mention that a few of my books have been returned with dog ears, small rips, or things spilled on them. My mom tried to tell me, "He's your cousin. You can do something nice for him." At the end of the day, I said no. And when they left, they weren't happy with me. My mom and dad both told me later that night that I was being really rude earlier and that I need to apologize and let him borrow the book, although I believe he bought his own copy now. I know it's just a book, but I still don't want to let it go. Am I the jerk? Edit. First of all, thank you everyone for all of the support. One thing I want to clarify is that I do not mind lending books. It's just this one specific book that I don't want to lend out. Also, as easy as getting a library copy is, believe it or not, my town doesn't have a public library. Regardless, they can still just buy their own book. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
No, OP's just fine, but everyone else in this story really sucks. Except for the teachers. That bit warmed my heart.
Charge back for a previous theft. So when I was younger, about 10 years ago, I worked for a small off-license liquor store that specialized in fine wines and rare spirits, while also keeping business going with the run-of-mill stuff. I went from unemployed to assistant manager to manager within 10 months of starting there. We had many lovely and loyal customers who earned nicknames. The dog walker, who came in with her dog 2 or 3 times a week and would just chat. The major, who just reminded me of Major from Faulty Towers. Miniman, a man who would only buy spirits by miniature size, 5cl. I assumed to hide it from a partner. And lots of people who were known by the product they'd buy. Boddington's man, Smirnoff guy, and Malbec lady, the superheroes of the store, and my favorite, Whiskey Gin, who used to work as a journalist for a well-known broadcaster in the UK. Amazing stories from the world of politics and sports. This story pertains to someone who was nicknamed the Hairy Shoplifter. I don't think they need an explanation. So a few years into the job, I must have seen the Hairy Shoplifter 3 or 4 times a week. He had shoplifted under previous owners, but new manager, new store basically, so any ban he had been given in the past was gone, even though the majority of the staff were unchanged. The Hairy Shoplifter is browsing and quite blatantly slips a bottle of wine into his sleeve and walks out. At the time, it was busy, and I just couldn't deal with reporting it properly, calling the police, waiting for a report. A 6-pound bottle would only equal an 80-cent profit for the store, more to the franchise owner. So I write it off as a loss and get on with work and life. However, in the back of my mind, I knew that wouldn't be the last time I saw him. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, he's back in the store. This time, it's much quieter. He picks up a few items and brings them to the till. The till was fairly old, so I was still manual typing. After 2 years, I had basically memorized the price of every item in the store, at the very least, those that were purchased regularly. He, on the other hand, does not. So I managed to price up the items, adding in the price of the bottle that had mysteriously disappeared. The Hairy Shoplifter said that it was more than he thought it would be. So I said something to the effect of, "We recently upped prices due to some unexpected losses over the last month." The Hairy Shoplifter understood, I think, smirked, nodded, and paid, and then went on his way. My lasting question was always, I wonder what he managed to hide and how that made paying the extra worth his while. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Half the class fails the midterm after cheaters copy me. I don't have a problem helping classmates. I really don't. I even tutored several classmates during my final semester of undergrad because they needed the help. They all ended up passing their classes with my assistance. This story comes from a particularly tough business information systems class during my undergraduate education. The students in this class were mostly non-technical business majors, so this new material wasn't at all similar to anything we had learned in other classes. Needless to say, most of the students were struggling, including me. I still had a 4.0 in college at this point, though I finished with a 3.99, and was willing to put in max effort to keep my stellar GPA. I started studying hard. I made my own Quizlet sets. I read the book every night. I finished assignments a week early, and I did outside research. After grinding it out in this class for about a month, I was working on an assignment in a room designated for quiet homework time, and that's where our story begins. Several other students from my class were there and working on the same assignment I was on. Judging by the size of exasperation, the irritated whispers, and requests for help, they weren't having much success. Having studied relentlessly for a month, I was having an easier time of it. As I got up to go get some water from the fountain in the hall, a classmate asked for my help. I told him I could do that and I'd be right back. I returned a few minutes later to find what I can only describe as a bunch of busy bees happily working away. This was strange since they were hopelessly stuck 2 minutes before, but whatever. My classmate tells me he figured it out without me. Now, I'm not an idiot, so I know the 5 people in this room probably copied my work off my computer when I went to get water. Scumbag move number 1. But as it turns out, no one in the class needed help the next day or the day after. Whoever in the study room had stolen my work had forwarded it to most of the class. Scumbag move number 2. I don't mind being helpful, but I hate being used, so I made a plan to get back at the people who had stolen my work. It didn't take long to organize my plan and carry it out. Here's how it went. 1. I changed an answer on the next assignment by multiplying by -1. 1,500 became -1,500 on this question. The next week, I left my computer in the same place as before and went to get water. Just like I had done the week before, 75% of the people in my class of 40 people put -1,500 as the answer to question 3, which was definitely incorrect. I began studying relentlessly for the midterm. Our professor had said he wouldn't adjust the weight of the test if everyone scored particularly well. This class was difficult, and no one was expecting anyone to score over 75%, so all my classmates figured the weight of the test would be adjusted. My plan was to wreck the curve, even though it's not a curve, and deny everyone the adjusted weight by producing a sufficiently high score. I recruited a classmate who hadn't stolen my work to study with. Together, we aimed to score high enough that our professor couldn't adjust the weight of the midterm. Here's how it all played out. No one who copied me realized the answer was incorrect. Every last one of those idiots submitted the wrong answer for question number 3. This next part surprised me, but my classmates began insisting the class was unfair, too difficult, or rigged, and launched these complaints at our professor. One day after class, I had the following exchange, since I was the last student out of the classroom. Professor: OP, do you think this class is too hard? Me: honestly, the class is hard, but if people spend as much time studying as they did complaining, they'd be fine. They really need to just get to work. Professor: I thought the same. Me: deciding spur of the moment my next move. I also happen to know that most of the class incorrectly copied my work on the last assignment. Question 3 should have a net income of 1,500, not a net loss of 1,500. I put down the wrong answer initially. Everyone copied me, and then I changed the answer later. I think you can reasonably conclude that anyone with -1,500 as the answer cheated off of my incorrect work. Professor: I figured they all copied, but I didn't know you were the source. Anyway, thanks for your candor and your dedication to the class. I didn't cheat, so I don't know what happened to those who did, but depending on the class, they would either get a 0 for the assignment or a plagiarism citation, so they got one of those. Fast forward to the test day, and I'm ready to go. I know since most of the students are business majors, they need 70% to pass the class because it's a required course. Hurting them on the midterm will go a long way in helping drop their grades. I take the test, I'm the first one done, and I leave pretty sure I've done enough to deny the class the exam weight adjustment. A week later, we get our exams back. Tests are distributed all around me with scores on the top in red ink: 68, 71, 70, 66, 75, 67, and these are the smart students. Someone on the end of my row takes a test from our professor and lets out a sigh as he begins passing a test down my row. It stops on my desk. 93%. I've won. Some idiot in the front of the class: So, is there going to be a curve? Professor: Nope. Me: What was the high score? Professor: 93. Average score for the exam was 71, so a good number of people didn't get a passing score. Maybe they made up for it on the final and passed, but I don't care. I got mine. Well, just goes to show you, cheating won't get you anywhere.
I can't believe all of those stupid students cheating on a test like that. My angel would never do such a thing.
I don't know, Karen. You sure about that?
How dare you?
So, Karen, what did you think of today's stories?
They were horrible.
Horrible? How dare you? These were some of the best we've ever read.
Oh, shut up, Mr. Reddit. It's ridiculous what people like myself have to go through. Dealing with stupid people like yourself and your subscribers.
Look, Karen, you can say whatever you want about me, but don't you talk about my re-army.
Tuh, re-army. Most of your viewers aren't even subscribed to your channel. 70% if I'm correct.
Well, I can't argue with that. That's true. Most of my viewers don't actually subscribe for some reason.
It's because you're stupid, Mr. Reddit.
No, I'm not. Alright guys, let's prove Karen wrong by making sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications.
Tuh, they're not going to listen to you.
And if you'd like me, or Karen,
What?
to record a special message for you, come visit me on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.
Never.
And join as a channel member today, and Karen will give you a special shout out in the next video.
Like heck I will.